was asked earlier by Senator Revilla. In fairness to him, the list will conclude Senator Villanueva. Number 2 is Senator Revilla. Number 3 is Senator Lacson. Number 4 is Senator Pangilinan. Number 5 is Senator Pacquiao. Number 6 is Senator Marcos. Number 7 is Senator Poe. 8 is Senator Ontiveros. 9 is Senator Go. 10 is Senator Cayetano. 11 is Mr. Pimentel. 12 is Mr. Angara. 13 is Mr. Villar. Senator Villanueva, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, let me thank you for this opportunity and for calling for another hearing. Let me also state for the record that in the very, very first hearing of this committee, I share the sentiments of our Senate President, Minority Floor Leader, and yourself, Mr. Chairman, because during that first hearing, we already asked for this listing, Mr. Chairman, if you would recall, even the medicines that are about to expire or expired, where they are, and the catch-up plan of DOH. But we will continue to wait, Mr. Chairman. I'll go straight to the point, Mr. Chairman. Let me first ask Mr. Wang Zhu Yen, the Chairman of Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation. Sir, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. My first question, just for the record, you are the Chairman of Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Yes, and it was incorporated in September 2019. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Yes, and in the 2020 audited financial statements, you submitted that your total assets in cash is 599,450 pesos. This is reflected in your 2020 audited financial statements. Is that correct? I am showing you a copy of what you submitted as your audited financial statement.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's the number reflected in our financial statement.
Thank you. In the same manner, let me show you what you submitted. No? I couldn't see anything like loans or disclosed loans in the 2020 audited financial statements. Not let me go to last hearing. Last hearing, in the Blue Ribbon Committee hearing, September 7.
Excuse me, Senator Villanueva, I didn't mind to want to disturb your train of thought. There's an echo coming in. It sounds like a Chinese guy is interpreting. Do you have an earpiece, Mr. Wang?
Mr. Chairman, I don't need an interpreter. I'm fluent in English. I think
what about that headphones? Is somebody dictating to you what the answers you're going to be giving?
No one. I think it's coming from from my screen. It seems it's DOH 10 Director Joe. So there's some noise coming from there, not me.
Okay. Will everybody please unmute, or rather mute DOH 10? I can see Director Jose RL. Can you unmute, please? Or rather, can you go to mute? Lacuna? Jose Lacuna, please mute. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I want them to.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you very much. So last hearing, let me just point this out. Last hearing, I was reading at the transcript of the last hearing. Mr. Lau made mention, hindi po, when a question was asked whether advance payment was made by the government to Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation before delivery of goods. And Mr. Lau answered saying no. Despite we are authorized to make advance payments, we constrain ourselves from paying advance payments. In fact, we only paid full payment to Pharmally after full delivery, after inspection, and after acceptance by DOH. Now, my question, sir, being the chairman of Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corp, how did you finance the April 14, 2020 initial order of 2.4 million pieces of face masks totaling 54 million pesos? Again, as I showed you earlier, I did not see any loans, financial loans in your audited financial statements submitted by Pharmally.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. To answer the question, when I first started when we started company with my partners in Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation, the goal we were a startup. We didn't envision the need to infuse a lot of capitalization, as the primary business was to introduce good pharma companies to come invest in the Philippines. So that is that. But
Mr. Chairman, you are not answering my question. My only question is, how did you finance? Because it is very clear, I showed you earlier, 599,000, you submitted your 2020 audited financial statement, 599,000. You and Mr. Lau said they only paid you after the inspection and acceptance by DOH. This is just the first order, Mr. Chairman. First order amounting to 54 million pesos in April 14, 2020. So I wonder, where did you get the money?
to answer your question, Mr. Chairman, we have access to the inventories of our suppliers. And what we do is we negotiate preferential payment terms with these suppliers, so that we can get the stock at hand.
Mr. Chairman, let me just place this on record. If I may show you the audited financial statements, it doesn't say anything about your inventory. In fact, if you look at the 2019 up to 2020, there's nothing, Mr. Chairman. I just want to put that on record. Another question that I'd like to ask there.
What is the answer? What is the answer?
Mr. Chairman, when I refer to inventories, I didn't refer to the company's inventories. We have access to the suppliers' inventories, so that we can relocate these supplies to deliver first. So,
which was not reflected, Mr. Chairman, in their 2020 audited financial statement. Again, Mr. Chairman, if you look at the supplies, the inventory, it's not there, Mr. Chairman. As I made mention earlier, this is just the first order. 54 million, may mga succeeding orders po ho, no? Let me just continue, Mr. Chairman, no? Let me
Mr.
ask
Chairman, the indulgence of Sen Joel.
Yes, the chair,
The indulgence of Sen Joel.
please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
With the permission of Senator Joel, Senator Tiveros,
Sen
try to let our colleague finish, because I think unless you have something really paramount to come in, go ahead.
Directly related.
Well, he may be laying the predicate for that question, so I would like to ask you to let him finish, so you can come in later and I will allow you. Okay? Is that okay with you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought he was moving to another question earlier. But if not Sen Joel, then I will. It was a follow-up to the question that you had just asked.
Can we let him finish, and then you can make the follow-up? I will allow follow-up. Thank you. Go ahead, Senator Joel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senrisa. I would just like to lay the predicate here. No? Another question that I'd like to ask is, if you have employees at Pharmally, sir, how many employees do you have?
yes, Mr. Chairman, we have 7 full-time employees. While during the course of our transactions, we employ ad hoc employees, so that the deliveries are timely delivered.
Just 7, Mr. Chairman. Just 7 employees.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have 7 full-time employees on our payroll. But to facilitate with all the deliveries, we do hire ad hoc employees in terms of packing and deliveries. So we are very nimble in that aspect.
Okay, 7 full-time employees plus probably you hire a contract of service job order employees. Do you pay SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig contributions, Chairman Chu Yen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. But for our full-time
Yes.
employees, I think we believe we pay all the necessary benefits.
That's what you believe, sir, no? Because I have documents here stating that you have 0 contribution to government mandated contributions of PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, and SSS. And so at this juncture, Mr. Chairman, may I request the committee to request, if not subpoena, this documents showing proof, Mr. Chairman, showing proof of payment by formally of government-mandated contributions.
Let me understand. You're asking him to submit documents of proof of payment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, because I have some
Contributions, yes.
documents here, Mr. Chairman, that states that Pharmally did not pay or contribute, Mr. Chairman, to this government-mandated contributions, SSS.
I think the gentleman is well within his rights to confront him with your statement, and if he says no, then he's lying. So can you show him the document that says he's not been paying? They're not been paying.
Yes, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
it is the same document that we received, Mr. Chairman, from the Blue Ribbon Committee. And as I asked the question a while ago, the chairman of Pharmally made mention that they are paying.
That's correct.
The SSS and the Pag-ibig and the PhilHealth, Mr. Chairman.
If he approved to the contrary, you just confronted him, and if he says yes, then he could be liable for false testimony.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have here with me, Mr. Chairman, but I am not sure if I'm allowed to share this in public. But with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I can show it.
Go ahead.
That if you look at the annual income tax return, Mr. Chairman, the SSS, GSIS, PhilHealth, zero po ito, Mr. Chairman. We can show it if you may.
All right. You have been confronted with that incontrovertible proof that you have not paid your contributions. What do you say, Mr. Wang?
Mr. Chairman, allow me time to collect the records from our company to show that we do, as I recall, our company do pay for this welfare. But let me provide and collect these records to counter that statement.
Well, you've been confronted with your income tax payments, which include all your expenses, including GSIS, SSS, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Senator Villanueva?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I think the certified public accountant is here. I will give you all the, what is her name? Will the CPA of Pharmally please speak up?
Illuminada.
Yeah. Ms. Illuminada. Ms. Illuminada Sebial.
Trivial, opo.
Nagbabayad po ba ng SSS, GSIS, or SSS, hindi GSIS, SSS at saka ang tinatawag natin Pag-ibig? Yes, Mr. Bial, please answer the question.
I will check there, sir. I will check after this, sir.
Excuse me?
I will check po.
I'm sorry.
I
She will check.
po.
She will check.
I will check. Would you mind taking your mask off? Ikaw lang ba nandyan? Para hindi tayo ma-fold. Yan.
I will check the record, sir.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a manifestation? This is Senator Villar.
Yes. You're recognized.
Okay. You know, I'm in business. Minsan kasi yung kumpanya, distributor lang of a bigger company in China. So you cannot expect them to be big, but they can deliver a lot of products because they are doing it in behalf of a bigger company in China. They don't really have to pay. They just get a commission for what they're doing. So we just make sure that this Pharmally is really an operating company that takes the risk, or they're just distributor from China. Kasi yung mga nadinig ko before, parang nanggaling sa China yung mga product. Parang sila lang dito sa Pilipinas ang nag-bid, ganon. But actually, the one providing the capital is the bigger company in China. So it is really a model also, and that should be considered also. Kaya hindi kailangan malaki yung kumpanya dito kung sila ay distributor lang na isang malaking kumpanya sa China na yung taga-China ang nag-finance ng lahat ng mga product nila na ibebenta dito sa Pilipinas. I just want to clarify that because that is a business model also. So I just want to clarify if that's how they do their business or they're really the supplier. I'm just kasi nasa business tayo, nakikita natin yung ibang kumpanya ganyan. Hindi naman sila malaki sa Pilipinas. They're just representing a big company in China that wants to do business in the Philippines. I just want to have it clarified para maliwanag tayo. Or they're the one doing it or they're representing a big company in China. That's all. Thank you very much.
Your point has been made, and I think Senator Joel was just asking whether they pay SSS to their Filipino employees.
That's mandated by our laws, Mr. Chairman. And perhaps it's also important to note whether Pharmally is just a middleman, Mr. Chairman. Again, the records will show, and I have shown you the record, 600,000 yung kanilang assets, capital assets, cash, pero nakakuha ng billion-billion na proyekto. So I'll go to that, Mr. Chairman. But I think it's important to note na importante yung tinatanong natin, Mr. Chairman. Last hearing, nabanggit natin yung mga nawalan ng trabaho.
Dahil ng SSS pa rin.
Walang nagdagdag na trabaho, hindi pa nag-contribute sa ating government-mandated contributions. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, I will continue if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Just a moment. I just want to put it on record that the question is appropriate because you're asking them, as a company doing business here, whether they do pay SSS. It's not a question of whether they're an agent or a distributor or whatnot. When they have employees, they should pay the SSS. That's your point, isn't it, Your Honor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you are correct.
All right, the point has been made then. Okay. Continue. Mr. Wang, are you going to speak up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have records of our company paying for SSS. I'm not entirely sure to which specific welfare, but based on my recollection, all proper welfares should be paid to the employees for our company.
Well, you will appreciate the fact that I asked you a certified public accountant and she still has to check and you have to check. That's a simple question. Now you can answer. In Tagalog, dapat alam mo yan. You should know. Because kung di mo alam yan, then you're a poor businessman. You're a little businessman, sabi nga ng Senator Villar, pero ang hinahawakan mong pera, the money that you're being paid by this government goes to the billions of pesos. So your littleness doesn't have anything to do with your obligations to the little people of this country. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, we are here to ferret out the truth. Kung meron pong dokumento, we will be happy to look into it because what we have right now, as I mentioned earlier, wala po. No? Let me continue, Mr. Chairman, by asking our PS-DBM, perhaps the former PS-DBM Undersecretary, Christopher Lau. Can I ask you, Mr. Lau, you're there? Mr. Christopher Lau?
Present.
Yes. Yes, sir. I would just like to ask you, ano ho yung kinakandak ninyong due diligence para po pumili ng supplier natin? Sino po yung in charge dito? Paano po yung proseso nito? Because at the end of the day, this is in aid of legislation. We wanted to find out if the system works, if there are lapses in the system, and how we can improve the system.
Okay. We get documentary requirements based on the law. During that time, wala pong requirement ang Bayanihan 1. We just got some guidance based on the previous law, which is procurement law, which is RA 9184. So basically, we ask for the income tax return, the omnibus sworn statement, the mayor's permit, and yung mga technical requirements po na bibilhin namin that they should also have submitted it in technical specifications. Other than that, there is no requirement by law. So that's basically it.
Sir, you made mention about your examination of perhaps financial statements of the company. Did you say it right?
Sworn statement lang po.
I'm sorry?
Omnibus sworn statement.
So yung financial statements, hindi nyo chine-check yun as part of your process in checking the financial statements of a bidder?
Hindi po required yun, Mr. Chairman. So it's not required by law. And even sa regular procurement, hindi po siya required. So
But
what
don't
we-
you think it is important, sir, to find out if the supplier can actually supply? Because I have here with me itong 2020 audited financial statements ng Pharmally, at makikita nga po natin dito, no, hindi lang kaninang binabanggit natin yung kapital, kung hindi, for example, sir, ito sa 2020, ang kanilang kapital ay napakaliit lamang, pero dire-diretso pa rin ho yan, no, from 2019, 2020, tapos 2021, nakakakuha pa rin po sila ng mga kontrata, no? Did you clarify the following figures before awarding Pharmally several document deals? For example, 33 million in donations, 1.35 million in salaries. Let me focus on that. 1.35 million salaries. Kanina ho, binanggit nung chairman, may 5-7 silang empleyado, no? Sa buong taon, that's only 1.35 million. Kung meron kang CEO na making about 100,000 pesos plus 13-month pay, that's 1.3 million na already. So parang isa lang ba yung empleyado nito? Kaya nakakapagtaka yung 7 empleyado na full-time plus yung mga pinapasweldo pa ho nilang iba. Hindi ho ba ito kasama sa aaralan bago i-award ang isang kontrata?
Hindi po siya part of the documents, Mr. Chairman.
So hindi po. Okay. Yung field jeps po, hindi ba kailangan may field jeps na part sila? Because field jeps actually accredited them. In fact, I think in June naging platinum po sila. Sino ba in charge ng field jeps?
Director Rosa is in charge. But during that time, Mr. Chairman, hindi po kasi siya record under Bayanihan 1.
Mm-hmm.
So we did not look into that. We only looked at the basic documents that for us to assure us, kahit hindi required ng batas na to get documents, we just check on it. Mayor's permit, ITR, and OSS. Ang basic po na guidance talaga namin during that time is to get the items delivered. And to protect the interests of the government, we refrain from parting our money. Hindi ko kami nagbabayad. That's the safeguard na ginawa namin.
Yes.
Hindi kami magbabayad until ma-deliver. So if they don't have capacity...
Binanggit niyo po yun, and I agree with that, sir, no? And I agree with that. Again, we are here to improve our system. Now that this has happened, do you think it's important now that we look into this? Because I think parang common sense siguro na kailangan tignan to, because you can easily figure out that there are red flags already just by looking at the audited financial statement.
It is upon the wisdom of the Legislative Department, Mr. Chairman, to do.
But if you're to be asked, would you say it should be?
Your Honor, we just implement what is the law. Kung sa wisdom po, it's we rely on Senate to legislate the laws.
Sige, I'll ask the field jeps, no? Kasi ano pa yung ginagawa ng field jeps? Na-screen ba talaga nila? If I may ask, who is in charge ng field jeps? Na-screen po ba nila? Kasi if you look at this audited financial statement, easily you would have these question marks sa iyong pag-iisip na kaya ba nilang mag-supply itong salaries and wages, 1.3 million, tapos bibigyan mo ng 8 billion na kontrata, etc. Baka nga dito pa lang makita mo na middleman lang ito, Phil Jeps.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Honors. With regards to your question, actually the Field Jeps office, the Field Jeps registration is not an accreditation. You can see that under section
Ano po ginagawa ng Field Jeps? Ma'am, ito na lang ho. Anong protection ang inyong binibigay para sa ating mga taxpayers to ensure na legitimate at maayos yung nabibigyan natin ng kontrata? Kasi noong pong June 8, 2021, in fact, in-upgrade nyo pa ho to platinum status yung Pharmally. Hindi ko alam kung ano yung basis for that.
Actually, we check the completeness of the documents as required under the IRR of RA 9184. What is required is the Class A eligibility documents to include the registration certificate, which is the sex certificate, mayor's permit, tax clearance, the audited financial statement stamp received by the BIR. And then there's also should be accompanied by a sworn statement in a form that is prescribed by the policy board. That documents submitted are complete and authentic copies of the original, and all statements and information are true and correct. So
ma'am,
the
thank you po
process
for
us-
saying that, no? Yung list na binanggit nyo, hindi ko kasama dun sa list na yun yung financial statements ng isang kumpanya.
it is included, audited financial statements, stamp
Then,
received.
then that's my question, because looking at it, hindi ko ba kayo nahinala itong financial statements na sinubmit ng Pharmally?
With
Paano po sila ma-credit and at the same time ma-upgrade? Na-upgrade po sila to platinum.
actually, we don't check the
So hindi yun yung
financial for
Anyway.
for a while. We don't check the document as to the if they are financially capable or if they are technically capable. What we check in the system is the documents are complete. A merchant's registration under the field chips is not contract specific nor understood to be tantamount to finding an eligibility.
Hindi nyo check kung kaya nilang i-deliver yung kanilang pinapangako.
Sir, it is the bank's responsibility. The field chips is just a registry of suppliers. It's a repository of documents, sir.
And that is the reason, Mr. Chairman, I'm raising this because parang wala din pong nangyayari na screening talaga, no? Let me go to the last point.
With the permission of Senator Villanueva,
Yes,
hindi
please.
sinecheck. At sinabi ni Undersecretary Lau na yung mantra nyo, basta nagsubmit sila, para sinasabi niya, bahala na si Batman. Eh kung talagang hindi makadeliver, nakita niyo maraming kung hindi nakadeliver, sino ang lugi? Sino ang lugi?
I mean,
Di ba malulugi ang tao? Mr. Lau?
Pag hindi sila naka-deliver, Mr. Chairman, they will not be paid and they will be blacklisted for a year.
I don't care about the blacklisting. That is why you have to do your duty. Due diligence, di ba? You have to check the financial records. You have to check the technical capability. And you have to check their capability to deliver. Di ba? Kaya nga may two envelope eh. You check the technical capability, you check the financial capability. Kung hindi na sila pumasa doon, talo sila. Pag hindi nyo ginawa yan, hindi nyo ginagawa ang tungkulin ninyo. Medyo napupundi ako doon sa sinasabi nyo. Hindi ako nagagalit ha. Sinasabi ko lang, para naman yung niloloko yung mga gumawa ng batas dito, na yan ang patakaran, hindi nyo sinusunod. Kung hindi nga nag-deliver, iba blacklist namin sila. In the meantime, baliwala sa inyo na madi-delay. Una, may delay na pagka hindi na naka-deliver. Alright? Now, with the permission of Joel Villanueva, let me just ask somebody that I invited here. Raymond Abrea, are you there? Mr. Raymond Abrea?
Mr. Chairman.
Can you please, there you go. All right. I heard you on TV the other day, and you said you had a critique. I will give you, with the permission of Senator Villanueva, just an overview for the senators and for the public. And if you can say it in Tagalog, mas maganda para maintindihan ng tao. Tama ba yung mga ginawang procedure yan? Bakit tayo kailangan nitong mga, anong kailangan din ba? Sabi mo, only registered in September 29, 2019, pero what was able to engage in government procurement immediately. Tama ba yan?
Opo, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if you will allow me, I have prepared 3 slides para
Sige,
po
bilis
maunawaan
lang,
ng
bilis lang.
committee at ng ating mga kababayan.
With the permission of my colleagues, para maliwanagan natin kung ano talaga ang ground rules at yung mga taong nanonood, maliwanagan yung ground rules. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, ito po yung tinatawag na basic due diligence for financial analysis.
Mr. Chair, just a
Mr.
clarification.
Senator Pangilinan, can you please allow me to finish with this with
I
this?
just want to know what is his expertise? It was
He's a
not
CPA.
placed.
He's a CPA.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, yes, Mr. Chairman.
It's an accounting firm. Go ahead.
Ito po, dahil po nga dun sa inquiry ng media, binigay po sa atin ang mga dokumento mula sa SEC at ito po ay inanalyze ng aming opisina at ako po mismo ang nag-aral. So sa basic due diligence po or financial analysis, importante po na maunawaan natin yung basic company background. Sino ba yung kumpanya na kung saan kanino tayo makikipag-transact? At dito po sa usapin, malinaw po Pharmally Pharmaceutical na narehistro lamang noong September 4, 2019. Sa kanila pong line of business or industry G46421, ito po ang ibig sabihin nito, sila po ay nagrehistro bilang wholesaler. Hindi po manufacturer, kundi wholesaler ng mga medicinal at pharmaceutical products. At malinaw din po sa kanilang primary purpose na sila po ay importer. Meaning pwedeng mag-import ng mga produkto pero hindi po nakalagay sa kanilang notes to financial statements kung sila po ay nagkaroon ng importer's license. Ngayon, sa kanila naman pong principal office, malinaw po at kahit sa previous hearing sinabi na Port Victoria Tower, Taguig City, pero ang opisina po ay hindi nakadeklara bilang asset ng kumpanya or kung ito ay inuupahan dahil wala pong lease agreement or rent expense na kinlaim ang Pharmally Corporation. Pagdating naman po sa mga incorporators, importante po ang mga personalidad o ang management ng kumpanya na nagtatransact tayo. Tatlo po sa kanilang incorporators ay nagdeklara ng parehas na residence address. At napansin po namin sa Articles of Incorporation, ang kanilang mga TIN number or tax identification number ay narehistro lamang mula 2016 hanggang 2019 at si J. Garado ang pinakahuling nakakuha ng TIN or tax identification number noong March 5, 2019. Ano pong ibig sabihin nito? Ibig sabihin po, itong taon lamang sila nagsimulang magtrabaho or magnegosyo sa Pilipinas dahil importante po ang TIN. Alam po ng lahat ng ating kababayan kahit mga empleyado or minimum wage earners. Pagdating naman po sa kanilang puhunan, ang initial capital which is malinaw, alam na po ng lahat, 625,000. Gusto ko lamang po banggitin na nabanggit naman ni Senator Villanueva na kapag ikaw ay importer, ikaw ay dapat may letter of credit or sa bangko, bank to bank ang transaction, wala pong disclosure kung ano po yung bangko nila at kung nakakuha sila ng letter of credit para bank to bank ang transaction sa pag-i-import ng mga goods. Hindi rin po nakadeklara kung may related party transactions or may nagpondo mula sa ibang kumpanya na related sa Pharmally. Sa nature of business po, malinaw po na...
Hindi mo alam kung saan nanggaling yung perang 625,000.
Ano po, Mr. Chairman?
Hindi mo alam kung saan nanggaling yung perang 625,000 pesos at tatanungin mo ngayon kung saan nila gagamitin yung pambayad sa gobyerno.
Opo.
Yung,
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman. At the nature of business po, kung tayo ay makikipag-transact sa kahit anong kumpanya, syempre titignan natin ano ang kanilang resources. Bilang wholesaler, dapat mo may inventaryo, may equipment, or may warehouse. Pero sa kanila pong audited financial statement, katulad po ng kanilang opisina, walang lease agreement or walang rent expense na kinlaim at hindi rin naman po siya nakadeklara bilang asset ng kumpanya. Siyempre, importante din na malaman natin ano ba ang produkto o serbisyo ng kumpanya na kung saan tayo makikipag-transact. Wala din po nakadisclose kung ano ang kanilang produkto at kung ito ay imported goods, gusto ko lamang pong klaruhin dahil sa mga kumpanyang tinutulungan natin, kahit po sila may problema sa BIR, hindi po nila isasarado dahil mahirap pong kumuha ng importer's license dahil maliban sa talagang may background checking and BI clearance, kailangan patunayan mo na saan ang opisina, i-ocular ang warehouse, may proof of financial capacity, may bank certificate at dapat i-endorso ng district collector ng customs. So hindi din po malinaw sa kanilang notes to financial statements kung sila po ay nagkaroon ng ganitong, kung sila po ay nakapag-secure ng importer's license. At sa customer naman po, syempre high risk po ang kumpanya na walang masyadong kliyente at sa pagkakataon nito parang lumalabas, gobyerno lang ang kanilang kliyente, kaya yung PhilJEPS registration ay mahalaga dahil doon manggagaling yung tax clearance mula sa BIR. Ito po ay company background lamang po para po mas maintindihan ng ating committee at ng mga kababayan natin kung bakit dapat bigyan pansin yung audited financial statements. Lahat po ng kumpanya ay nagre-rehistro at namumuhunan. Sa accounting po, tinatawag yan na accounting equation. Dapat po mapatunayan natin kung ano yung mga resources at saan nanggaling o yung sinasabi nating sources. Sa pagkakataon pong ito, noong 2019, nung sila ay nagrehistro, ang kanilang pagmamayari o resources ay ang 625,000 na cash investment. So doon po yun po yung kanilang kapital. Ang dapat po linawin ng komite is tulad na nabanggit ng ating mabuting Senador Villanueva, Sila po ay nag-purchase ng 7.2 billion based po sa kanilang notes to financial statements, hindi po naging malinaw kung yung 7.2 billion ay inutang or additional investment dahil wala po sa kanilang notes to financial statements. Ulitin ko lamang po na karamihan sa mga importers gumagamit ng letter of credit. Maliban na lamang po kung sila po ay may dollar account or may account doon sa bansa kung saan sila nagtatransact para mas mabilis ang pagbabayad or transaksyon pagdating doon sa negotiation ng presyo at pagbabayad. Pagdating ng pagtatapos ng 2020 mula 625,000, ito na po ang kanilang na-accumulate na assets. Bigyan pansin lang po natin yung sinasabi natin na inventaryo. Required po sa Bureau of Internal Revenue na isumite kung nasaan po ang mga inventaryo at ang halaga nito. Wala pong deklarasyon kung nasaan po ang warehouse at kung ito po ay rehistrado sa BIR dahil hindi po tayo pwede magdeklara ng inventaryo kung wala pong inventaryo. So yung 121 million na inventaryo, hindi po malinaw kung nasaan siya dahil wala pong warehouse na nakadeklara. Pagdating naman po dun sa sources sa kanilang 2020 audited financial statements, meron silang 1.7 million na dineklarang liability pero mas malaki din po ang dineklara nilang deferred tax. Ibig sabihin po buwis na hindi pa binabayaran, nagkahalaga na 17.88 million pesos at ang kanilang kapital 284. Hindi pa po ito yung financial highlights or analysis. Punta po tayo sa pangatlong slides. Dito po mas mauunawaan natin na yung increase na 44,149% ay hindi po normal. Hindi po ito, sana po lahat ng kumpanya ganyan ang nangyayari na sa maliit na puhunan ay malaki kagad ang kapital. At hindi ko po sinasabi na ito ay illegal o suspicious. Ang sinasabi lang natin, hindi po normal. Hindi po ordinaryo na nagkakaroon ng ganito kalaking increase. So pumunta po tayo sa financial highlights para mas maintindihan natin kung bakit mahalaga na tinignan natin o pinag-aralan natin yung financial statements ng kahit anong kumpanya na kung saan tayo magtatransact. Mula po sa 625,000 capital na paulit-ulit na po natin narinig, sila po ay nagdeklara ng 7.5 billion sales. Ibig sabihin po, meron po yung halos 1 billion na value-added tax na babayaran kung wala po silang kinlaim na input tax. Pero base po sa kanilang balance sheet, audited balance sheet, sila po ay nag-claim pa ng excess input. Ibig sabihin mas malaki pa yung maaaring hindi sila nagbayad ng VAT at BIR po ang pwedeng mag-check niyan kasi po audited financial statements lang ang ating tinignan. At ito po ay nagresulta sa 265 million na profit. Ibig sabihin po sa kanilang 5.25% na margin bilang wholesaler, sila po ay kumita ng 265 million profit or 42,344.24% return on investment. Maaaring tama po yung isang senador na sinabi na kahit maliit ang puhunan, pwede mag-transact ng malaki pero hindi po naging malinaw kung paano po nila finance o pinatakbo ang kanilang operasyon. At ang isa pa pong source ng income nila na dapat bigyang linaw ng komite, yung tinatawag yung diniklara nilang foreign exchange gains. Kasi po wala po silang pera pero nagdeklara po sila ng halos 100 milyon na foreign exchange gains. Ibig sabihin po sila po ay may foreign currency. 29 million po ang nasa notes to financial statements at ang kanila pong sinasabing unrealized foreign currency, foreign exchange gains ay umabot ng 63 million. Kaya po sila nagdeklara, kung maalala nyo kanina dun sa accounting equation, nagdeklara po sila ng 18 million deferred tax. Ibig sabihin po, hindi pa po nila binabayaran tong tax na to dahil unrealized pa yung foreign currency gains nila. At ito po, ang 265 billion, sila po ay nagkaroon ng provision for income tax na 113 million. Mapapansin po natin na 30% corporate income tax ang ginamit nila dahil nag-file sila bago pa ang effectivity ng create law. Pero ang nabayaran lang po nila ay 95 million at meron din silang kinlaim na excess tax credit or sobrang withholding ng gobyerno kung gobyerno lang talaga ang kanilang kliyente dahil nagwi-withhold po ng 2% ang kliyente. So ito po yung sa income side. Pagdating naman po dun sa expense or cost side, ito po yung kanina nating binanggit sa 625,000 na kapital o puhunan, sila po ay nakapag-import ng 7.2 billion na purchases. Mahalaga pong malaman kung anong panahon o buwan na import ang mga inventaryo na to dahil nagpasa po tayo ng Republic Act 11494 or Bayanihan 2 at base po sa Revenue Regulation 28-2020, exempted po sa VAT, sa excise at sa ibang fees and other fees ang mga ang pag-import ng mga COVID-related supplies and equipment. So wala po sa disclosure kasi kung kailan po at ano yung schedule ng 7.2 billion na purchases. Pero meron po silang kinlaim na 17 million freight, duties, taxes, and brokerage fees. Siguro po customs po makakapagpatunay kung ito pong mga expenses na to ay nabayaran at ibig sabihin may importer's license po sila. Kasi po may mga kumpanya na nakakapag-import pero walang importer's license dahil dumadaan sila sa broker or may ibang kumpanya na nag-i-import para sa kanila at binabayaran na lamang nila ito. Kung ito ay inaalaw ng customs or hindi, customs lang po makakasagot nun. Then sa liability po nila, medyo dapat lang pong bigyan linaw ng auditor dahil sa kanilang cash flow statement, meron po silang diniklara na 61 million na liabilities. Pero pagdating po sa balance sheet, note to financial statements number 10, 1.75 million na lamang ang kanilang liability. At dito po, lumalabas, merong 1.5 million na advances from customers. Kung ang kliyente lamang po nila ay gobyerno, ibig sabihin advances from government po, yung nasa notes to financial statement number 10 po. At lumalabas po 200,000 ang kanilang accounts payable or pagkakautang sa kanilang supplier. Then sa kanila naman pong capital expenditure, mula sa 625,000 na puhunan na cash, sila po ay nakapag-invest ng 13 million na motor vehicles. Hindi po malinaw kung anong motor vehicle ito. Kung ito po ba ay motorsiklo, sasakyan. Wala pong deklarasyon. At dapat po meron kasi dine-depreciate po siya. Then container vans worth 250,000 pesos at computers worth 276,000 pesos. At ang isa lamang pong dapat bigyan linaw din yung kanilang sa salaries. Alam niyo po sa Bureau of Internal Revenue, required din po ang mga kumpanya katulad namin na magsumite ng alpha list ng kanilang mga empleyado. Sila po ay nagdeklara ng 1.4 million na salaries pero ang kanilang donations ay umabot ng 33 million. At ito po ay subject sa 6% donors tax unless otherwise mapatunayan nila na ang mga donasyon na to ay may kinalaman sa COVID or sa BIR accredited foundation. Bakit po ito nakalagay sa financial highlights? Kasi po 79% ng kanilang operating expenses ay naging donasyon o donation po sa nagkakahalaga ng 33 million pesos. Ulitin ko lamang po, ito po ay basic due diligence at pag-aaral ng kanilang audited financial statements. Wala pong assumptions or wala pong ibang impormasyon na ginamit kung hindi kung ano yung nasubmit sa kanila sa Securities and Exchange Commission, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Sisimplihan ko lang. Itong mga patakaran na ito na kailangan kumuha ka ng import license, siyempre mag-i-inward remittance ka. Tama po ba yan?
Opo.
Wala naman silang pinakikita kundi 625,000 lang. Tama po ba yan?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
Ay sabihin yan, para makapagpasok ka ng malalaking talagang tambak-tambak na mga face mask o PPEs kung sakasakali, talagang dapat pakita mo saan ang galing yung perang pinambayad mo para makapag-import ka. Tama po ba yan?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
So kung wala silang may pakita, pwede bang pumasok yan sa tinatawag natin, nabibigla na ako armed money laundering? Pero hindi lang may paliwanag, saan ang galing yung perang yan? Pwede manggaling sa droga yan. Tama ba yan?
Hindi ko po masasagot, Mr. Chairman.
That's not the question. I'm just speculating. Biglang may pera eh. Ang pera mo, 625,000. Magpapasok ka, makakapagkuha ka ng negosyo na 7.2 billion ang biglang sales mo. Nakakapagdonasyon ka. Wala ka namang income na pinapakita ng 10 million. Nakakabili ka ng mga kotse na 30 million. Saan galing yung pera yan? Yan tatalangin ng dapat ng ating mga gobyerno, di ba, ng BIR, ng customs. Tama ba yung sinasabi ko?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman. Pagdating po dun sa komento nyo ng money laundering, alam ko po ang mga bangko po, inaalam po nila kapag biglang may malaking amount na pumasok o tinransact ang kahit sinong kumpanya o depositors, Mr. Chairman.
We're aware of that. Pero the point that I'm trying to say, kaya kita pinagpaliwanag yan para makita kung bakit ginawa ng gobyerno itong mga patakaran na ito. At times you have to have 3 years na import license bago ka makakuha, right? Kailangan papakita mo 3 taong ka na nagnenegosyo. Ito, nag-incorporate ng September. By 6 months later, nakakuha na sila ng malalaking kontrata. Tama ba yan?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
At para makuha nila yung kontrata yan, kailangan dinue diligence siya, nilalaw, at saka nilaliyong, O, saan mo kukunin yung pera mo? Ang laki-laki ng kaya mo ba yan? Di ba yan ang due diligence na dapat? Lawyer yung mga yan eh.
Yun po ang due diligence, Mr. Chairman.
So sa mga talagang sa tingin mo salat sa due diligence.
Base po sa aking mga records or information na nakuha, obvious po kasi yung mga dapat tinanong at kinlarify, Mr. Chairman.
Pero hindi tinanong. Kaya ngayon, nakabili sila, napahirapan pa yung mga Filipino corporations na nagbabayad ng lahat ng buwis. Pag pumasok sa import license, napapahirapan. Pero ito, sa isang kisap mata, kwarta na. Dahil nakakapag-import na sila kaagad ng napakalalaking halaga na hindi pa maipaliwanag. Sa palagay mo, saan galing ang perang yan? Ikaw is CPA. Saan galing ang perang yan? Diba?
May mga
pagkakagawa ka ng sila di ba? Dealer, di ba? Lumalabas, dealer?
Opo, wholesaler po. Opo.
Wholesaler. Kung wholesaler sila, dapat may pambili ka. Dapat may letter of credit ka. Pagka nagpunta ka sa bangko, hahanapan ka ng letter of credit, anong pambabayad mo sa letter of credit? Tama ba yan?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
So sa makatwid, kung ikaw mahirap, hahanapan ka lahat ng letter of credit, hahanapan ka ng pera para makapag-import ka. Kung wala kang koneksyon, lalo kang patay. Tama po ba yan?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman. Mahirap po makakuha ng letter of credit. Dapat po may pera ka sa bangko.
Kung wala kang pera sa bangko, ang tatanungin ko ngayon, may pera ba sa bangko yan? Yan ang mahiwagang tanong na susunod. Tama po ba yan?
625,000 po.
625,000. So, hindi ako natutuwa. Nakukuha lang ako na para bang napakadali. Napakalakas nitong bagyo ito na makakapasok na walang pera, makakakuha ng kontrata, tapos hindi pa tayo nakakasiguro, nagbayad sila ng mga sinasabi ng mga buwis, nakakapagbigay ng donasyon, kaliwat kanan, at tapos itong mga abogado ng PS-DBM, si Warren Leong, excuse me Mr. Warren Leong, you're a CPA lawyer, Certified Public Accountant and Lawyer. Yan ang nakita ko sa iyo. Kaya ako medyo naasiwa eh. Ito si Lau, lawyer. Lawyer. Nagturo pa sa Ateneo de Davao. Naku, Ateneo ko eh. Pare-pareho sistema namin eh. Napang wala nang mabilis masyado. Pero tanungin ko kayo ngayon, sa tingin mo ba dapat pinayagan niya kung naggawa ng due diligence yan? Kahit na nagmamadali pa tayo, kahit na talagang nagkakamatay na tayo, papapasukin mo lahat kaagad yan ng 7.5 billion, kamo gano'n, unti-unti kunyari, 54 million pesos ba? Ang kanilang kinita nung una, yan ang lumalabas sa aming pagsusuri. Ang kanilang unang kontrata, 54 million. Dapat ba sinuri na yung kanilang kakayahan?
Dapat po, Mr. Chairman, kasi sa importer's license pa lamang po ang financial capacity at bank statement ay required po base po sa kanilang website, Mr. Chairman.
Now, kung 54 million pala, palpak na. Tapos sa sumunod later on, mga bilyon-bilyon na. Di ba? Papakita ko sa inyo yung mga kanilang importation. Di ba? Yan, oh. Ang unang kanilang kontrata, surgical mask, nakakahalaga ng 54 million. Silaw ang user dyan, ha? Yung April 16, surgical mask, 500,000 quantities, 13.86 million. Kakikita ba nila yan? Yung April 20, surgical mask, 10 million. Lumabas 220 million. Di ba? Tapos nag-import sila ng 75,600 million. Umabot na sila ng 887.86 million. Tuloy-tuloy yan hanggang umabot ng, hanggang sa baba, nag-import na naman 688 million, umabot na ng 1.5 billion. Yung April 23, 20, umabot na sila ng 1.875 billion na suma total. At pagkatapos, hanggang May 8, umabot na sila ng 5.6 billion. Panay supply nila, supply na supply. Walang nagtataas ng kilay, walang nagsasalamin para makita nila yung kanilang sinasabi. At kailangan talaga dapat makita kung kanilang working capital ay sapat sa kanilang first contract. 624,000 ang kanilang unang kontrata, wala man lang kung nakalusot doon sa 624,000. Paano naman nakalusot doon sa 54 million? Paano nakalusot doon sa mga kontrata na ang pagkalalaki na? Talagang pabaya o may kooperasyon ang government authorities. Will it be unfair for me to conclude that or for the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee to conclude that? Sir?
Pwede niyo pong itanong sa kanila, Mr. Chairman.
Well, ang kinakausap ko kayo at kinakausap ko ang taong bayan. Ang taong bayan dapat nakikinig kung paano talaga biglang yumaman dito sa ating bansa kung ikaw ay konektado at kung ikaw ay talagang kapalmoks na hindi mo papansinin na naghihirap ang tao, ipapasok mo na ipapasok yung mga ganyang pera at wala kang kinakatakutan sapagkat hindi ka na-check ng customs o kung hindi ka na-check ng BIR, hindi ko alam, sinasabi ko lang yan, hindi pa ako dumarating doon, pero nakarating na okay law. At narinig yung sinabi niya kanina, hindi kailangan eh. Meron kaming bayanihan law, doon ka nagtatago. Ang sagot ko dyan, kaya tayo may two envelope rule. Technical at saka finances. Tama ba yan? Titignan mo muna yan. Tama po ba yan, sir?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
Pag bumagsak ka doon sa finance, talo ka na. Pag bumagsak ka sa technical, talo ka na. Tama po ba yan?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
At hindi nasususpindi yung batas na yan kahit na tayo ay nasa COVID pandemic. Sapagkat walang kadipidepensa ang mga tao natin. Kaya ngayon, hirap na hirap tayong lahat. You are a certified public accountant. Saan po ba galing ang pera ng gobyerno? Hindi po ba sa mga taxes, sa sin taxes, lalo na sa health? Tama po ba yan?
Tama po, Mr. Chairman.
So madakil tabalaga, kahit na sino ka pa, dapat babantayan mo yung perang ibibigay sa iyo sapagkat ang lumalabas dito, laway lang ang kapital at pagkakaibigan lamang ang kapital, kikita ka na ng limpak-limpak. Kaya ako ho, talagang nagugulat. Siguro nagugulat sa akin ang Pangulo, nagugulat sa akin lahat sila. Dahil ba't ang lakas ng dating natin dito? Hindi ako nagmamalinis po. Ang sinasabi ko lang po, hirap na hirap ang bayan, biglang kikita ng 7.5 billion itong Singaporean na si Leong, itong si Lau, yung kanyang tatay na nawawala ngayon, hindi niya makita. Tinanong ko siya ng isang araw, nasaan tatay mo? Hindi niya makita ang tatay niya. At hindi man lang nagtanong, tama po ba na dapat tanungin? Isang pindot lang makikita mo yung Pharmally sa Taiwan? Papayagan niyo po ba kung kayo nakaupo? CPA lawyer kayo katulad kayo ni Attorney Leong. Tama po ba? Napapayagan niyo? Nakita niyo? Merong stock manipulation? May warrant of arrest? Papayagan niyo?
Mr. Chairman, hindi po ako abogado. CPA po.
O, di ba? CPA ka.
Opo.
Kahit hindi ka abogado, kahit hindi ka CPA. Pag nakita mo, ang laki-laki ng kontrata na ibibigay mo sa kanila, tama po bang ibigay mo pa rin sa kanila kahit na nakita mo na sila ay may warrant of arrest? I'm sorry, I'm laying it on you. You don't have to answer. Ang sasagot ng mga tao nanonood. Nakikinig. Thank you, sir.
Salamat, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Villanueva, I'm sorry, Senator Villanueva, I just wanted to lay the overview para maintindihan natin lahat kung where we're going. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And just to join you, Mr. Chairman, nakakadismaya po, and thank God we have Sir Mon Abrea here to crystallize itong ating mga pinagtutuunan ng pansin. And again, we are not picking on any particular company, not even Pharmally. Ang gusto lang natin ipaabot sa lahat ng kumpanya na gustong magsamantala sa kaban ng bayan, meron po tayong mga sistema na supposed to be, gaya ng sabi ni Sir Mon, may mga these are basic things that you need to check. At kitang-kita mo, may mga red flags pero wala hong nangyari. No? We are here again dahil gusto nating bantayan ang ating mga sistema. One last point na I would like to ask Mr. Chairman, yung process po, no, I've been talking about the process, the system, how we would be able to improve. If you look at PS-DBM, gusto ko lang tanungin yung PS-DBM, whether yung current or yung dating Yusek Lau, no? Tinitignan ko po ito yung, ano ba yung process of inventory management of PS-DBM? I wanted to find out which division is in charge of the delivery of procured items.
Mr. Chairman, if I may please be allowed to comment.
Please, sir.
For the delivered items, Mr. Chairman, it's under the operations group. Once we receive the procured items, common use supplies and equipment, we store it at our warehouse, Mr. Chairman. And if there is a demand from our regional depots, we ship it to the regional depots. As to the DOH requirement, we delivered it directly to the DOH warehouse po.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Gusto ko lang tingnan niyo po itong table na ito. No? What's PS-DBM's explanation for the unavailability of an average of at least 31%? 31% of its stocks of common use supplies. Binanggit na natin for so many hearings. Ano ba yung common use supplies? Ito 31%, no? Kung titignan niyo po yan, ayan, yung monthly na nakalagay, ito yung mga stocks, etc. Pero ang average po is 31%. There are 308 items listed as common use supplies and equipment on the PS-DBM website. Pero an average of at least 96 of the total 308 items were not available per month. Hindi ko ba parang ito yung dapat na ginagawa ho ng PS-DBM supposed to be, di ba? Para bumili, ito yung inyong mandato, bumili ng mas murang halaga para makatipid ang gobyerno dahil bulk yung bibili ninyo. Pero kung 31% hindi naman available itong mga common stocks, parang ano yung ginagawa natin?
Mr. Chairman, that is actually what we are addressing. It cannot be denied that there are out of stocks in 2020. The pandemic really did have an effect on our operations, considering the lockdowns imposed and the logistical issues attending our deliveries to the regional offices.
You don't deny this data, this particular data, that 31%, one-third, Mr. Chairman, one-third of its common use supplies are unavailable. Hindi ba ito dapat yung may PS-DBM?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
My question is, you don't deny these figures.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. Let me end by asking our chair of the Commission on Audit, Chairman Aguinaldo, who I respect so much, Mr. Chairman. Ang dami na ho, nagdaan itong mga hearings natin, no? Panlima na po ito. Nakita natin yung PS-DBM, how they're doing their job. One-third of its common use supplies are unavailable. Narinig na natin, Mr. Chairman, yung pagta-transfer ng funds para makaiwas doon sa para hindi bumalik sa treasury, ipapark doon sa DBM at bahala na kayo na yung bumili para obligated na. At yun na yung naging nakagawian. And Senator Drilon even mentioned yung PITC, ganun din po. No? Pangatlo, yung supposed to be na savings, hindi natin nakikita dahil mas mahal pa nga yung supplies na nabili ng DBM nung ibinebenta na. And lumabas din ho yan last hearing. So ang tanong ko lang po sa ating COA Chair, Chairman Aguinaldo, epektibo pa ho ba itong PS-DBM para gawin itong mandato nila? Baka dapat i-abolish na lang natin ito?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if I can speak for the Commission when I say this kasi medyo opinion na yung hinihingi nyo eh. Although personally, from what I've seen, parang I would join the, I think there are several bills that have been filed seeking the abolition of PITC and PS-DBM. I think it's high time that we look at how we procure. One of the criticisms of Republic Act 9184 is that it's too focused on accountability at the expense of efficiency. So maganda siguro may konting balance, no? Balancing efficiency with accountability. So I would support the measures that have been filed, and I would be very willing to provide some suggestions on changing the nature by which we procure common use supplies in particular to make it less perhaps susceptible to any kind of alleged corruption or the like. So yun lang po, and I support the bill, and I would be very willing to provide some input for the consideration of the Honorable Senate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Aguinaldo. I think it's loud and clear. Kung hindi natin nakikita na ginagampanan ng ating mga ahensya ng pamahalaan, gaya ng PS-DBM, nabanggit nyo rin yung PITC, abolish na lang po natin to, and I'm in full support of that. If that's the case, nakikita ho natin dito, parang tinatanong, dapat tanong natin ulit sa kanila, what are we here for? Kung ano yung dahilan, bakit nandito tayo? Nandito tayo para bantayan ang kaban ng bayan. Kung hindi natin ito nagagawa, hindi nakakatipid ang ating mga ahensya, hindi nakakatulong ito sa ating mga ahensya, then we might as well abolish this. So maraming salamat, Mr. Chairman, for your patience. Dear colleagues, I know a lot of my colleagues would ask questions. Maraming salamat sa ating mga resource persons. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. God bless.
Thank you very much. With the permission of our colleagues, I just want to ask, para tuloy-tuloy ang trend of thought, if I may. Let me ask, sinasabi ko lang, tama pala ang ginawa ng COA na talagang masita sila. Now, may I ask Mr. Wang, because of all these statements made by our resource person, Mr. Wang. Mr. Wang?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
It has been established that you are the importer, correct?
Yes, we are the distributor and the business functions of Pharmally Pharmaceuticals in distribution.
But your documents should be able to support that business. And it seems that your documents does not support that you have that capability. You only had 625,000. Otherwise, you cannot import. Explain that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. During the pandemic, I think what really determined the factor is the access to the supplies, access to tangible negotiations with suppliers, so that we can get the supplies first. We do not disagree that the company at that point in time does not have a lot of assets, but for example, when we refer to the masks that we delivered in the month of April, all these supplies, we were able to source it from distributors and suppliers. And we delivered first to PS-DBM before any payments were made to us. That is all I can say.
You are telling us that you are the principal, you have the principal access connectivity, that you can deliver all these goods. Is that what you're saying us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
it doesn't matter that the government should check where you got the money?
Mr. Chairman, I do not
Are you delaying the government to check where you got that money to import all that?
Mr. Chairman, we will comply with all the documentary requirements.
No, you did not. You did not have any import license. The import license is so questionable. All the other bidders also have access to their suppliers. Even a Filipino firm was able to make the masks. So if your only argument is access, you're the primary access, then let's forget everything. You're the only one that can provide. So we should have gotten everything from you. Would that be correct?
No, Mr. Chairman, I do not think the government gets everything from the company.
Somebody please Bicol.
No, Mr. Chairman, I respectfully disagree.
You have no other clients, right, in the Philippines?
We do have some private sales.
Oh, really? How come you did not say that? What clients do you have?
Mr. Chairman, I don't, because of non-disclosure agreements, we cannot disclose.
No, I don't believe in that non-disclosure agreement when people are dying out there. When people are dying and are sick and they cannot work, while you can work and while you can have all this money and enjoy your life. Shall I tell you the possibility? You're now, your father, you said you cannot see, you cannot find, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
You've not gotten in touch with him, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And your father and you were in that meeting in Davao. Is that correct?
Yes, in the meeting in Davao in 2017 March. Yes, that's correct,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
There's nothing wrong with that meeting. You were coming in and making a presentation so that you could do business in the Philippines, correct?
So that my father's company could do business in the Philippines.
All right. But unfortunately, when you bidded afterwards, we found out that your company has cheated many Taiwanese stockholders and to show that the Taiwanese have already issued a warrant of arrest for you and your father.
Mr. Chairman, may I first state on record that I've never held or owned any single shares in that company. and I was only appointed to be the director of the company in June 2017 to manage the Philippine operation.
So you were brought by that company in. All right. Okay. I'll accept that for the
Chair?
moment. But let me ask you now,
Mr. Chair?
uh,
Yes, sorry.
Senator Amy, do you mind?
Yes, sorry.
Let me just finish. I don't want to lose my train of thought here.
Yeah, sorry. It was just in reference to what you inquired about earlier. In the ITR, there are some sales indicated to other companies. So they have other private clients such as Watson's, PH Pharmacare, GN Power for approximately 29 million of the declared sales. That's all.
What is your point?
Yes, my point being that there's a small amount that they declared as sales to private companies. So it's not 100% to government. That's all.
And that's late. They have not shown that so far, and you're the one saying as to us now, right? And that's a fact. They have not shown us that one, and he could have answered, all right. And he said that he had, and I said I was willing to do that. But let me point this out. Maybe this is unfair, but $50 million were lost in Taiwan. Now, how much is that in pesos?
$50 million is approximately 2.5 billion pesos.
Sorry. All right. People with shares of Pharmally face an estimated 1.5 billion NT dollars or $50.81 million in losses. Having allegedly colluded with Chinese businessmen to falsify accounts and financial statements in one of the largest securities fraud in recent years, involving a Taiwan stock exchange listed firm. You and other executives left Taiwan, face charges for alleged contraventions of the Securities and Exchange Act, stock manipulation, fraud in financial statements, and illicit transfers. An international warrant for Wang Wenlai is valid for 37 years. Now, let me ask you a question. Could that have been the source of the money?
No, Mr.
Could be
Chairman.
the source of your money here.
No, Mr. Chairman. The amount of contribution I have to the company in terms of loans is approximately $1.5 million.
I'm sorry?
The source of funds that were contributed by me is approximately $1.5 million. I never declared to be very rich. As I've said, the company and its directors source for the supplies through our negotiations and from our communities for these supplies.
I cannot understand what you're saying, but did you have a letter of credit to be able to buy all these supplies from Taiwan, from China?
We did have, subsequently, we did have a letter of credit from a local bank in the Philippines for these supplies.
How much? At this point, with the permission of the Senate, I'd like to ask the Money Laundering Council to inspect all the bank transactions that may have occurred with this company so we will know the money trail. I saw the Director General of with the permission of the Senate President, the Money Laundering Council be asked to find out whether there is a money trail to be proven here, because there's so much billions of pesos that have occurred here, and we don't even have a money trail where this money came from. Saan ang galing ang perang yan? At bigla sila nakakapag-transact sa gobyerno nang wala silang pinapakitang kapital kundi yung $625,000.
Yes, sir. On it.
Right?
Yes,
So-
we will take the necessary steps, Chairman Senator Gordon.
Thank you, sir. On that note, I'll stop there muna, and I'll reserve it because I want to have the others follow the spoor, if you will. If that's your pressure, but I think there are enough senators here that can follow the track. And I'm glad Senator Lacson is next. Senator Lacson.
Mr.
Senator-
Chairman, with the
Senator,
indulgence
sorry.
of Senator,
Senator Revilla is next to answer. Yes, go ahead, Senator.
with the indulgence of Senator Bong Revilla.
Yes,
Go
Senator.
ahead,
Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
Rivera, with the permission of Senator Revilla. Go ahead.
Yes,
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Mr. Chairman. Just an addendum to what the chairman has just stated in relation to securing the documentation from the Anti-Money Laundering Council. May I just add, Mr. Chairman, that considering that the Philippines and Taiwan have an agreement on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters, could this representation, Mr. Chairman, also request that the committee subpoena the entry and exit information of Huang Wenli and Huang Tzuyen from the Bureau of Immigration? Because, Mr. Chairman, there are reports that although Huang Wenli was in the Philippines in 2017 to meet with the president, the last official record of his entry was dated 2005. So lastly, Mr. Chairman, that creates another mystery. Paano siya nakapasok sa bansa? No? Para ba itong PPE na ginamit yung C-130 ng ating armed forces? So I respectfully move, Mr. Chairman, for the subpoena of those entry and exit information of the Mr. Huang from the BI. I so move, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Bong.
The lady is asking, if we can subpoena the immigration records.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, specifically the entry and exit information of Huang Wenye and Huang Tzuyen. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I so move.
And of course, the Anti-Money Laundering Council should be informed as well about the movement of money, which the Senate President has already agreed to, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So my motion is an addendum to what the Chairman and the Senate President have stated. I so move and
Correct.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
With the permission of Senator, so ordered to the Director General. May we ask which bank, Mr. Wang? Just one question. May we ask which bank you transacted with? You claim you opened a letter of credit allegedly with a local bank. Which local bank did you transact that with?
We had a credit line certificate from the Union Bank.
Union Bank.
Union Bank of the Philippines. Yes.
And when was that date?
November 27, 2020.
November 27,
2020.
2020.
20.
Your transaction occurred in April 2020, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And may we know how much that letter of credit consisted?
500 million pesos.
And you got the letter of credit?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll take your word for it for the moment. Let us call the attention of the Anti-Money Laundering Council here, and the Director General should make that part of the request to find out how that transaction was able to take place. In other words, from April to November, when you were already being paid, you now had the capacity because you were able to get paid by the Philippine government. Sa Tagalog, nabayaran na kayo ng gobyerno. In other words, you were already paid by the government, so now you have something to show to provide a letter of credit, to get a letter of credit. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
A letter of credit will not be issued unless you have the capacity to pay. Yes or no?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, may I call on Senator Revilla? I'm sorry if we're dragging anchors here, but it's very hard to really follow the trail. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to take off from the questions of our colleagues in the previous hearings, particularly the transfer of 42 billion from DOH to Procurement Service, Department of Budget and Management.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Sir,
for COVID-19 purchases.
yung doon sa BID,
I would just like
some
to-
problems kasi madouble daw names eh.
Who's talking? Please, turn off lang po yun. Okay, I would just like to see the whole picture so we can appreciate their circumstances surrounding this matter. We hope to receive responses either from the DOH or PS-DBM for the following questions. First of all, gusto ko po sanang itanong ang issue regarding face shields. So may we know from PS-DBM, either Attorney Wayan, the OIC of PS-DBM, or former DBM Yusek Lau may answer. My first question is, tama po ba na ang face shield ay considered as common use supply and equipment falling under the category of personal protective equipment for utility staff as contained in Annex B of GPBB Resolution Number 03-2020 dated 9 of March 2020. Tama po ba? Yes, Attorney Wayan or Yusek Lau may answer.
Mr. Chairman,
Sino to? Please state your name, please.
Attorney Wayan po, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Attorney Wayan, is this correct?
Our interpretation is that face shield forms part of the personal protective equipment po, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Kailan po yung unang nag-request ang DOH from PS-DBM ng supply ng face shield?
Mr. Chairman, I would have to check our records first on that.
Yes, please.
But I believe that it was after the issuance of the GPPB resolution, Mr. Chairman.
Nang mga panahon na yon, na March, April, May, ay may inilabas ba po ang suggested retail price o SRP para sa face shields ang DOH? Kung meron, kailan naglabas at magkano?
Based on my recollection, Mr. Chairman, there was no SRP for the face shield. There was, however, an SRP for the surgical mask. The SRP for the face shield came out on the later part of 2020 na po.
Okay. Anong later part? August, September, what?
If my memory serves me right, Mr. Chairman, it's around September po. Kasi we had a public bidding last December setting the maximum price for a face shield at around 50 pesos po.
So magkano yung SRP?
Maximum of 50 pesos po. That's the ceiling price.
Okay. Did the Commission on Audit question the price at which bought you the face shields? Sinabi ba ng COA na overpriced ang inyong face shields?
No, Mr. Chairman. The AOM that we received was actually on the inventory issues.
Okay. Now, may I know from the DOH, Secretary Duque may answer? Dahil wala pa po kung kayong inilabas na SRP para sa face shields ng mga panahon na bumili ang PS-DBM March, April, May 2020. Ang ibig po bang sabihin nito kahit anong presyo, kahit ito ay 120 pa, acceptable po ba ito para sa inyo as long as they meet the specifications that you require? Secretary? Secretary Duque? We can't hear you.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Your Honors? Yeah, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman. Yeah, thank you. At that time, nung Yun ay walang SRP na na-establish. But at that time, we were already badly in need of this personal protective equipment for our healthcare workers. No? And we value the life of our healthcare workers, and we wanted to make sure that whatever protection these PPEs, loose PPEs such as the face shield can give, should be most welcome to our healthcare workers. But the SRP came out sometime in August 10, 2020, and the SRP had a floor price of 26 pesos and a ceiling of 50 pesos.
So
yan
acceptable po yung price na yan. Acceptable po.
At the time, yes, there was no SRP. We had no idea. What was important was the protection of our healthcare workers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dahil nandito po tayo sa usapin ng SRP, I would also like to further shed light on this matter. Bakit po nag-issue ang DOH ng SRP para sa face mask at face shields? Ito po ba yung kaugnay sa mandato nila sa ilalim ng Republic Act number 7581 or the Price Act, kung saan ang DOH ang tinalagang implementing agency which has jurisdiction over basic necessity or prime commodity with reference to drugs?
Yung amin kasi pinamili, it wasn't meant for the public. No? Usually kasi yung SRP, this is for the general public, no? To have an idea how much would be a reasonable price for a piece of personal protective equipment. No? So kami, talagang ang habol namin was for the protection of our healthcare workers. And during that time, it was very important to make sure that hindi sila matalsikan ng mga laway o mga hininga na pwedeng may dalang COVID-19 virus. So, yun po, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, pagdating sa face mask at face shields, ang DOH ang magtatakda ng SRP at hindi ang DTI. Tama po ba ito?
Kasama po ang DTI at saka ang DOH. Halimbawa doon sa face mask, yung surgical mask, ang I think hindi ako nagkakamali, bandang Marso, naglabas ng SRP jointly ang DTI with the DOH at 28 pesos, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. For PS-DBM, does this SRP also serve as guide for PS-DBM's procurement of face masks and face shields? PS-DBM?
That would be correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Now, Mr. Chairman, I would like to connect this matter about SRP to the fund transfers and agency procurement requests, or APR, of DOH to PS-DBM in relation to the procurement and face masks and face shields. Dahil medyo naguluhan po ako sa discussion last hearing at gusto ko lang po bigyan linaw ito. Now, Secretary Duque, nag-transfer po ng 42 billion pesos ang DOH sa PS-DBM. Yes or no?
Yes, Your Honor, but this was not a one-time transfer. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Mula po sa 42 billion, nag-procure ang PS-DBM ng face mask. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, Your Honor.
Face shields,
Yes, Your Honor.
PPE sets.
Yes, Your Honor.
Noong nakapag-procure na ang PS-DBM gamit ang pondong 42 billion, na-deliver po ba ng PS-DBM ang face mask, face shields, PPE sets sa DOH?
Yes, Your Honor.
The supplies were all delivered. After the delivery, may binayaran po ba ang DOH sa PS-DBM?
Wala akong binayaran dahil nauna na akong nakapag-deposit ng bayad. So, nung dumating yung mga gamit, yung mga PPEs at mga iba pang mga gamit, dineliver sa Department of Health. At wala nang binayaran ang Department of Health dahil may nauna na deposit na binigay. Kanya ang sagot doon kung may binayaran pa pagkatapos ng delivery, wala na po.
So wala pong double payment dyan?
Wala po. In fact, Mr. Chairman, meron lang po akong kasulatan dito galing kay COA, Chairman Aguinaldo, na binibigyan na liwanag yung pag-iisip ng iba na baka meron double billing or double payment. So ito po ay sinumite ng kagalang-galang na tagapangulo ng COA at ang sinasabi dito kung mamarapatin ninyo ay ang dalawang bagay. Una, para sa Department of Health, yung parehong common use and non-common use supplies and equipment using the 41.464 billion fund transferred from DOH, ito po ay galing doon sa appropriations under the Republic Act number 11494 or better known as Bayanihan 1. Yung pangalawa naman po, for all government agencies through the PS-DBM virtual store, meron po silang parang tinatawag na tindahan na yung mga common use supplies na binili ng PS-DBM gamit ang sarili po nilang revolving fund of the PS-DBM. Ito naman mga supplies na ito ay available po ito na pwedeng bilihin ng nino man government agencies, no? Kasama rin dito ang DOH, ano po, syempre. At batay po sa mga ulat o records, ang Department of Health purchased common use supplies from the PS-DBM virtual store. Gamit po rito ay hiwalay na budget. Ito po yung GAA 2020 funds, no? Para before the deliveries of the supplies, yung malakihan mga bulto na mga PPEs na in-order namin. Hindi naman po kasi kaagad dumarating yun. Matagal bago makarating, kanya kinakailangan namin mabigyan ng proteksyon yung amin mga healthcare workers, bumili muna kami sa kanilang virtual stores. No? So, pangalawa, dito rin sa kasulatan ni Chairman Aguinaldo sa Blue Ribbon Committee, ay pinapakita na even after the deliveries, ang DOH office or ang mga medical centers, yung ating po mga ospital, ay bumili din ng mga supplies mula sa PS-DBM virtual store kasi nga hindi pa nila natatanggap yung kanila pong mga supplies. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Mr. Secretary, please submit the COA letter to the committee.
Meron na po, Mr. Chairman. Pinadala na daw po kanina, Mr. Chairman, ni Chairman Aguinaldo. Salamat po.
Okay. After the transfer of 42 billion, meron po bang ibang transfer of funds ang DOH to PS-DBM to procure medical supplies? Secretary.
Alam ko rito, yung 41.464 billion, inclusive na lahat po ng mga supplies. But subject to validation, titingnan ko po, sisiguraduhin ko lang po, Mr. Chairman. We will give a report on this as well.
Okay. Now, sapat po ba yung supplies na nabili mula sa 42 billion o kailangan po bang bumili pa ng karagdagan, Mr. Secretary?
At that point, ang alam ko po ay sapat na po, no? Pero syempre depende po 'yan sa gamit eh. Dahil kung maraming mga pasyente at alam naman ninyo, magastos talaga sa PPE ang atin po mga healthcare workers para po sa kanilang proteksyon, ay hindi po natin kaagaran masasabi na ang binili natin tama na ito. May projection po tayo. In fact, ang projection natin was 15 million PPE pieces for about 30 billion thereabouts, no? So, yun po, Mr. Chairman.
Kung sakasakali pong kailangan pa ng karagdagan ng DOH o ng ating mga regional hospitals, saan po kinukuha yung mga pondo at pambili nila sa karagdagang face mask, face shields o PPE sets?
Gaya po ng nakapaloob dito sa sulat ng ating butihing chairman, ay meron pong GAA source, funding source, ang mga ospital, ang mga regional offices, at yung po ang ginagamit nila. In fact, ito pong pinag-sausapin ng face shield and face mask. Ang ginamit po rito pambayad sa PS-DBM Virtual Store ay yung kanilang DPCB, Disease Prevention Control Bureau, para po sa central office and regions, at mga hospital may sarili naman po silang funding source. Salamat po, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Secretary. May we know from the PS-DBM, Attorney Wayan, kapag nag-transfer po ng pondo sa inyo ang DOH, ito po ba ay may kasamang APR, ang Agency Procurement Request, na nagsasaad kung ano-ano ang kailangan bilhin ng pondong yon at kung ano-ano ang specifications ng nasabing produkto?
Mr. Chairman, yes, that would be correct, Mr. Chairman. For every procurement request that DOH transmits to PS-DBM, it contains the technical specifications of the items that it wants to buy from us. And the money that was initially transferred is considered as advance payment, which is deductible for every procurement request that DOH sends to us, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, kapag natapos na ninyo yung ang procurement process at na-deliver ng mga face masks, face shields, PPE sets, ibinibigay na po ba ninyo ang mga produkto sa DOH? Kailangan pa po ba nilang magbayad muli sa PS-DBM based on the SRP that they issued kahit na nag-transfer na sila ng funds?
No, Mr. Chairman. The funds are already with PS-DBM. So whatever item we procure for DOH that is indicated in the agency procurement request, we deduct it from the funds available. It may be lower than the price or the budget allocated by the DOH in the said APR, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, sa makatawid, meron po bang double payment sa face mask at face shields na binili ng DOH through its fund transfers to PS-DBM?
No, Mr. Chairman. There is no double payment.
So no double payment. Were the items delivered completely? Was the quality checked and accepted by DOH? Nasiguro ba maayos lahat? Yung mga PPEs na yan na dineliver dyan, kumpleto po ba? Hanggang sa kahuli-huli ang numero?
That would be correct, Mr. Chairman. For every agency procurement request made by DOH, we always ensure that the quantity as indicated in the APR is all accounted for, the technical specifications are complied with, and before we issue to the DOH the procurement service delivery receipt, it passes the acceptance. It has to be accepted first, Mr. Chairman, by the DOH.
Okay. Related to the classification of face masks and face shields as common use supplies and equipment and the procurement of these items by the PS-DBM, did you procure face masks and face shields apart from and outside the order of the DOH, or apart from those bought using the 42 billion? Bumili po ba kayo para magkaroon kayo ng stocks para sa inyong store na ngayon ay online na?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we actually have PS stocks for surgical mask and some of the items as classified under common use supply and equipment by virtue of the GPPB resolution issued last March 2020 po.
Okay, ang ibig sabihin ba nito ay maaari na bumili sa inyo ang mga ahensya ng gobyerno at mga ospital ng face mask at face shields katulad ng pagbili ninyo ng office supplies?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it is available to all agencies that need it.
Sinusunod pa po ba ninyo ang SRP na ini-issue ng DOH para sa pagsusupply ng face mask at face shields sa mga government agencies at hospitals?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Required po ba kayong magsagawa ng market scan para sa mga produktong ito?
That is the preliminary activity before we procure, Mr. Chairman. We check the price in the market po, Mr. Chairman.
So did you actually conduct market scan? Ano po ang resulta nito?
Based on the market scan, we base our procurement on the lowest price available. And when we set it for procurement, for a bidding, that would be the ceiling that would be advertised for bid. So,
with the permission, just a quick interjection. One quick question, with the permission of Senator Revilla.
Go ahead, Senator Pangilinan.
Yes.
Go ahead, Senator Pangilinan is recognized.
Yung suggested retail price
na
binibigay ng GPPB memo, retail, just to clarify, the purchases or importation made or the contracts entered into by DBMPS is not retail, di ba? Pag bumibili kayo ng face mask na 20 plus pesos o face shield na 122 pesos, wholesale yun, di ba?
Mr. Chairman, can you please repeat the question? Sorry, I was not able to.
Sinasabi nyo na just to clarify, no, yung SRP iba yun sa presyo na binibili ninyong wholesale, di ba? Iba yun, no? Pag ang SRP ay 28, di ba? Tapos ang inyong wholesale price na binili ang isang mula sa supplier ay 28. Hindi ibig sabihin parehong presyo yun. Kasi mas mataas talaga ang retail kaysa sa wholesale. Just placing that on record. Hindi ba? Wholesale should be cheaper than retail. Just for the record.
Mr. Chairman, whenever we conduct procurement, we check the prevailing SRP. So we set it as a limit.
Yes, no, but my point is SRP is retail, tingi. 'Di ba? You buy in bulk, wholesale. 'Di ba? So
that is correct, Mr. Chairman.
'Di ba? So dapat pag wholesale, I mean in the ordinary course of business, wholesale is much cheaper than retail. Just placing that on record, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Other than Pharmally, did the PS-DBM also procure surgical masks at 27 pesos per piece from other suppliers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, but it is not the same at that price.
Is it lower or higher?
There were lower prices offered by some companies on different dates. The date actually is crucial in this.
I-clarify mo yung dates para maintindihan ng tao, no?
At that time, the Pharmally was able to get the contract. The SRP was the ceiling price at that time was 28. Now, subsequent to the initial procurement of PS, the prices varied depending on the availability of the supply and the quantity po.
Okay, now to tie up all my questions concerning the issues of overpricing, double payment, and transfer of funds. Isang katanungan lamang po para sa COA, Chairman Aguinaldo. You said during the last hearing that your audit observations on PS-DBM dwelled on the weak control over inventories. You have also heard answers and statements of DOH, PS-DBM, and of course, when COA audited PS-DBN or DOH on their transactions concerning the procurement of face masks, face shields, PPE sets, tinignan at binusisi nyo lahat ang mga dokumento patungkol dito. Now, may I know, Chairman Aguinaldo, are there findings of overprice and double payment? At may anomalya po ba sa mga pagkakabigay ng kontrata sa Pharmally? Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The findings of the audit team of PS-DBM focused really on the inventory management of supplies, at least specifically no, yung sa COVID-related supplies. Wala po silang findings on overpricing. If you look at the mass po kasi, I think yung DTI price at that time, and we're looking at March 2020, was about 28 pesos. No? Yun yung ano, and based dun sa records kasi ng PS-DBM, mukhang yung price at which they purchased from the different suppliers, including Pharmally, no, was between I think 13.50 and 27. So from the point of view ng auditor, sabi niya, well, it's below naman the suggested retail price. Kaya siguro hindi na sila nag-finding on overprice. Now, in terms of the face shields, it was difficult kasi nga, I think si Secretary mentioned earlier, wala kasing SRP yung face shields. And so, medyo mahirap gumawa ng pricing ng face shields, no? Kasi wala silang source na makuha. And I think they may have had problems also in the pricing of the PPEs. Hindi nila alam how to find, you know, a retail price for that. Kasi hindi naman talaga nire-retail yan. It's usually specific for the hospitals. In terms of the Pharmally bid, although pinapatingnan po natin sa auditors yan, ang importante from the COA point of view though is really whether the funds were actually disbursed and the goods were actually delivered and inspected at ginamit po. So insofar as our job, which is settling accounts, mukhang wala naman silang nakitang anomalya doon sa aspect na yon, no? Kasi the money was disbursed at saka na-deliver naman. Now whether Pharmally should have been given the contract or not, it's really more, I think, an ombudsman issue rather than a COA issue. Kasi nga, at the end of the day, na-settle yung account na-deliver at binayaran. And wala namang nakitang defects dun sa goods that were purchased. Yun lang po, siguro linawin ko lang kasi nga ang mandato po ng Commission on Audit is really limited to settling, auditing, examining, and settling accounts. Pagdating po sa issues of corruption, while we can help provide data and evidence and leads to corruption, kami mismo, we do not have the mandate to probe corruption, which is why we have to work with other government agencies when it comes to probing corruption, such as the Ombudsman or the Department of Justice. Yun lang po.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
That's already my last question. Thank you, Chairman Gordon. Thank
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Senator Gordon. Can I just ask one question in relation to that? From the COA.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman Aguinaldo, was COA able to examine whether purchases of face masks and face shields were made by the regional hospitals and by the DOH-run hospitals or by any government agency from PS-DBM? In other words, there was a SRP, suggested retail price. The assumption is that it was for sale as part of their inventory. Now, has COA examined these documents, whether in fact sales took place within the suggested retail price?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. During the last hearing, I think it was the Senate President who brought up the issue, no? Kasi nga, he was referring to a statement I made during the budget hearings po sa House that there were some hospitals that actually were procuring from the regional warehouses of PS-DBM. And I guess it created some confusion kasi nga, bakit pa sila bibili? May pinasa na silang 42 billion sa PS-DBM. So I asked the auditors to please take a look at this. Ang nangyari po is nung March 2020, the GPPB had classified certain COVID-related supplies and equipment as common use supplies. So soon thereafter, siguro within a week lang or so, PS-DBM started procuring already some of these common use supplies using their own money. Meron silang revolving fund which they used to purchase.
How much was that, Mr. Chairman? How much funds from PS-DBM was used to purchase?
What ang pinakita sa akin about 350 just a second, Mr. Chair. I think 355.8 million.
Okay, 355.8 million. What was transferred from DOH to PS-DBM was 42 million to purchase these
billion.
Billion.
Yes, 42 billion.
42 billion was transferred by DOH to PS-DBM.
That's correct, sir.
And there were also funds of PS-DBM to the tune of about 300 plus million that were used to purchase the supplies in early March.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
Mr. Chairman.
okay. So there, how much was the total purchases of DBM, PS-DBM? How much were the total purchases for these medical supplies, face masks, face shields, which were considered as common use supplies?
The total was, as of December 31, the total that they were able to, the total value of the contracts they entered into was 39.076 billion plus 355.83 million. So yun po yung total as of December 31 po.
Therefore, Mr. Chairman, apart from the 300 and so million pesos, which was used for the purchase of these common use supplies, which came from the funds of PS-DBM, 39 billion or so came from the budget of DOH, transferred to PS-DBM. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Revilla, are you still asking a question?
He's done.
I finished. I have other issues later on.
I'm done, Mr. Chair. I'm done, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the chair now calls Senator Lacson for your interpellation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was supposed to raise first the issue on the grossly overpriced ambulance units with equipment that the DOH supplied to the LGUs. But so as not to deviate from the main issue at hand, I will direct my questions to Mr. Michael Yang, if he is still around.
Mr. Chairman, can Senator Lacson be so kind enough to remove his shield? I can hardly hear from where I sit.
I'm with my staff, so this is COVID-19 related mask.
Okay.
I'm in my office, Mr. Chairman.
Sige,
So
okay.
with your indulgence, I'll just
Sorry,
speak
sorry.
a little
It's okay.
louder. Yeah, just for the record of this committee, Mr. Michael Yang, what is your place of residence?
residence 住在哪一个地方呢？
我住在马尼拉19号。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that his place of residence is at 19 Nara.
19 Nara Street, South Forbes,
South Forbes.
Makati City. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
That is the same place
Nakashoot.
where the OSAA, our security unit, the Senate security unit, served the subpoena on Mr. Yang. Is that correct?
See.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Which I think the security guard denied.
就是说那个保安就是
你跟他说，我已经出国，就半年没有回到这个地方了。他可能以为我是没有回来住了，也没有授权给他书，他就这样打。他是一个普通员工，我不知道。
Mr. Chairman, according to Mr. Yang, because he has been out of the country for a period now, maybe the person thought that he may not be coming back, and that's why
我已经半年没来住
对
了。
对 so he thought that probably Mr. Yang will no longer be coming back. So maybe that's why he said, and then because he is an ordinary staff or employee, that's why he gave that response.
Okay, I think at least that's clear that is his place of residence. How long has he been staying in the Philippines?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the second question?
How long has he been staying in the Philippines? I'll remove my mask na nga. Sige. All right. How long?
我在菲律宾有22年了。
Mr. Chair, to answer your question, number one, yes, that is his place of residence. Number two, he has been in the Philippines for 22 years.
22 years. Okay. My next question is, when, how, and why did you become involved with Pharmally?
给他这个是给他说这个公司我没有参与，我也不知道有这个公司。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that he doesn't know and he has no relation to Pharmally.
I would like to remind Mr. Yang that he is under oath, Mr. Interpreter.
Yeah, 他说呢，他要提醒你，你在那个有
说我是看到新闻才知道这个黄明利中这么多票。
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang is aware that he is under oath, and it is only through the news that he found out that of the existence of Pharmally Pharmaceutical.
So he maintains that he has nothing to do at all with Pharmally. Is that correct?
Senator Lacson, just one moment. I just want to call the attention of the official interpreter of the Blue Ribbon, Ms. Lingling Ponce. Ms. Lingling Ponce, please make sure that we are getting an accurate translation.
Yes.
Ms. Lingling Ponce, are you there?
Yeah, here.
Sorry?
Can you see me? My video is on. Yeah, here.
Okay. Are you giving us an accurate interpretation? Make sure that we're getting an accurate interpretation.
Sure.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, Miss,
There's a variance, tell us. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
You may answer, Mr. Yang.
所以你回答就是刚才的问题，说你到底有没有任何跟这个 Pharmally 制药公司有什么关系吗？
你跟他说他这个说的太宽了，跟他说他们这个以前他们做这个生意我不知道，后面他来找我们后面他有来找我采购，我才帮他，我不知道他用这个公司，我只有他人来找我，我不知道他的公司。
Okay, Mr. Chairman, what Mr. Yang said is that initially he doesn't know of the existence or the whereabouts or anything about Pharmally Pharmaceutical. Later on, they did approach him for some assistance.
So it is not true that he has nothing to do or he had nothing to do with Pharmally.
Mr. Chairman, your question pertains to the corporation or on the operations. We just like to clarify on that part.
First, the corporation, Pharmally Pharmaceuticals.
就是你有关于这个公司的成立注册有关系吗？
没有，我没有。
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we'd like to clarify that in terms of the registration or setup of Pharmally Pharmaceutical, Mr. Yang has nothing to do with it.
That is correct. But does he have anything to do with the operations of Pharmally Pharmaceuticals at any point?
那关于他们的运营，你是否有插涉到吗？
没有，我不知道，我没有。
Mr. Chairman, in terms of operations, Mr. Yang has not been involved or he has no idea.
Does he know Wang Chuyan?
你认识黄
The chairman of Pharmally.
跟他说17年他跟他爸爸来见过我一次，后面我就没有见过了。
During the 2017, he met Mr. Huang Chuyan together with his father, and after that, they have no any communications.
Does he know a certain Lincoln Ong?
你认识一个 Lincoln? Yes, he know Mr. Lincoln Ong, Mr. Chairman.
How did he know Mr. Lincoln
你怎么认识 Lincoln Ong?
他以前他们亲戚也跟我说，就是这样联系的。
Before, Mr. Yang knows the relative of Mr. Lincoln Ong. That's why he got to know him.
Did he have any business dealings with Mr. Lincoln Ong? Whether in his personal capacity or in his capacity as one of the incorporators of Pharmally Pharmaceuticals?
Okay, 你有没有跟林立做过生意，特别是在这个 Pharmally 制药公司？ Mr. Chairman, no.
No business dealings with Mr. Lincoln Ong?
你没有跟 Lincoln Ong 有任何？Mr. Chairman, can you just be more sorry? Can you just repeat the question?
Did he have any business dealings with Mr. Lincoln Ong, whether in his personal capacity or as a stockholder or incorporator of Pharmally Pharmaceuticals?
Okay, 你有没有跟林立这个林肯任何的生意来往交易，就在这个 Pharmally Pharmaceutical 公司？
你是说交易是什么时候？就是说什么时候？
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang would like to ask in terms of what specific period you were pertaining to.
In the supply of PPEs, medical supplies like face masks, shields, etc., etc., in relation to the transaction dealings of Pharmally with the PS-DBM, to be more specific.
So, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, your question is if he has any dealing or anything to do with the transactions pertaining to PS-DBM and Pharmally Pharmaceutical.
Yeah, PPEs.
For PPEs.
Supply of surgical masks, face shields, face mask.
Okay, 你在这个有没有跟 那个预算部Pharmally 这边呢 有没有任何关系，就是干涉到你提供材料像物料像这些口罩、面罩、防护衣？
你给他解释哦。第一方面，你去竞标，我从来没有不知道，也没有参与过。你先给他解释。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang would like to clarify to say that when Pharmally did get their contracts, he has nothing to do with any of those contracts or awards.
第二就是后面他们以前面做生意不知道，后面有一个 PP 林坤有来找跟我帮忙，我有给他介绍中国的朋友，给他们有这个资源，有这个能力也帮他们。
Okay. Then eventually, Mr. Lincoln did approach Mr. Yang, and then he helped Mr. Yang introduced friends to Mr. Lincoln who could help them with their supplies.
That is correct. That's the point I was trying to point out, Mr. Chairman, that Mr. Michael Yang was the one who acted as a go-between or middleman between Lincoln Ong or Pharmally Pharmaceuticals and the suppliers from China. Is that correct?
So, Mr. Chair, your question again, that Lincoln and...
No, Mr. Michael Yang acted as a middleman between Pharmally Pharmaceuticals through Mr. Lincoln Ong and the Chinese suppliers of the medical supplies in relation to the procurement.
他那个林立的那个 Pharmally 制药公司和这个供应商这些工厂的中间人嘛。
你跟他说，我就介绍他们自己讲。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that he only introduced and let them discuss things on their own.
So that was his only role. He introduced the suppliers to Mr. Lincoln Ong, and then he had nothing to do with the supplies anymore.
所以你只有这个角色，就是介绍他们，然后就没有在做别的。
他们介绍中国朋友跟他们去自己买卖。
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that he only introduced them, and then they discussed things on their own.
And he stopped all his participation.
I'm sorry, come again, Mr.
And
Chairman.
he stopped all his participation in the dealings between the Chinese suppliers of the medical supplies that I mentioned and Mr. Lincoln Ong. He just left them on their own.
然后没有再参与吗？
对啊，说我就介绍后面他们有我看到他们拿货自己去哪里买有的我就不知道了，因为我不是我只有给他介绍一部分。
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that he only introduced as to where or who they closed their dealings. He's not he does not know who or where did he actually purchase those stocks.
And he never guaranteed
with
his Chinese suppliers the credibility or the ability of Mr. Lincoln Ong to pay them.
你没有担保过？
没有，我只有给他们介绍朋友，他们自己去谈，可能朋友有帮他们垫资，还是帮他们出钱，我不知，他们去谈的。
所以你说你只有帮他们介绍？
对对，介绍。
然后呢？
就是你介绍他们，他们自己去谈去买嘛。
Okay, so Mr. Yang only introduced, and then they negotiated on their own, and and then probably the first initially introduced friends introduced some other friends for them to negotiate all of their dealings.
How many suppliers did he introduce to Mr. Ong?
你介绍了几个供应商呢
？4个嘛，4个。
Around 4 suppliers, Mr. Chairman.
These are individuals or these are companies in China?
个人吗？或者是公司？
这个我是介绍朋友，这些有能力，这些人在可能去介绍找这些厂家，还是你去买货给他，我不知，就我介绍的。
Okay, so he introduced friends, individuals, and then probably these people could have introduced some other friends or companies directly to them.
That's it. That's his participation. Introduce and then left them alone.
所以你的角色就是 介绍，然后就让他们自己谈判。
他们就去。
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Is Mr. Ong around? Mr. Lincoln Ong?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Nandito po ako.
Lincoln, narinig mo lahat yung sinabi ni Mr. Yang.
Yes po,
Maliwanag.
yes po.
Okay.
Opo.
Ano masasabi mo doon sa kanyang pahayag na ang role lang niya, inintroduce kanya doon sa 4 na Chinese suppliers, wala na siyang kinalaman at all. Ikaw na lahat ang nakipag-deal, ikaw nakipag-transact, ikaw ang nag-usap na lang kayo kung paano susuplayan yung Pharmally Pharmaceuticals na mga face masks, face shields, PPEs, and other items. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, totoo po yun na may pinapakilala po si Mr. Michael Yang ng mga suppliers at yung mga friends na tumulong para dito sa PPE project. Totoo po yun.
Yun lang ang role niya. Hindi na siya nakialam pagkatapos ka maipakilala sa mga suppliers.
I'm not privy to their what's their discussion pero may pinapakilala talaga siya. Kung ano yung discussion nila, hindi ko na alam.
Hindi maliwanag, ano? Okay. Ang sabi ni Mr. Yang, ang role niya lang, ipinakilala sa iyo yung mga tao sa China nakakilala niya. Pagkatapos wala na siya kinalaman, ikaw na lahat na nakipag-deal doon sa mga suppliers. Is that true?
Mr. Chair, nakikipag-usap talaga kami sa mga supplier na pinakilala niya. Yes po.
Hindi, ang tinatanong ko, wala na ba siyang kinalaman? Umalis na siya, kayo na lang ang nagtuloy-tuloy ng usap at hindi na nakialam si Mr. Yang.
Hindi ko, well, paano po
Yung
hindi
diretsong
nakialam?
sagot lang, Mr. Lincoln.
Sige po, Mr. Chairman. Ano po ulit yung tanong niyo para maintindihan ko na maayos at isagot ko na
Ganito
maayos?
ang flow, no? Sabi ni Mr. Yang, ang papel lang niya, ipinakilala ka sa 4 na suppliers from China.
Opo.
At wala na siyang ginawang iba pa. Ikaw na lahat ang nagpatuloy kung paano makipagtransaksyon, kung paano tumanggap ng supplies at makipag-deal do sa mga suppliers na sinasabi niya ipinakilala lamang sa iyo.
In addition to that, Mr. Chair, he also guarantees for us. Nagka-guarantee sila para sa amin. Kasi totoo po yung analysis ni Mr. Chairman na medyo challenging talaga pagdating sa financial.
Anong klaseng guarantee? Ang ginagarantiyahan niya na makakabayad ka?
Yes po.
Magkano na ilabas mo ng cash?
Can you take out your mask para maintindihan ka namin maigi?
Mr. Chair, positive po ako sa COVID. Tapos po may mga tao din po sa bahay. Dito po ako sa sala.
Nag-iisa ka sa kwarto ngayon? Nag-iisa ka sa kwarto?
Nandito po ako sa sala namin kasi nandito po yung mga computer at yung iPad.
Kasama dyan?
Meron po may baby po ako at mga tao, and then this is medyo open space din. So,
Sige, then speak a little louder, okay?
Opo, yes, Mr. Chair, yes po.
Okay, Mr. Ong.
Sorry sa introduction, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dahil sinabi mo na wala nang kinalaman si Mr. Yang kung hindi maggarantya, paano mo binabayaran yung mga Chinese suppliers? LC, money transfer, or cash? Paano mo binayaran sila? Kasi malaking halaga ito eh.
Yes po, Mr. Chair. May mga portion na kami na nagdiretso nagbayad sa mga suppliers dahil meron po naman kami mga pondo sa amin. At syempre, mga savings ng mga our incorporators, our partners. And then there are certain items that we need. We don't have enough funds to settle. So Mr. Michael Yang guarantees for us.
So hindi totoo na pinakilala ka lang at tapos na. Tuloy-tuloy ang kanyang participation by way of continuously guaranteeing sa mga suppliers na babayaran sila. Parang utang. Sabihin na natin
Mr. Chairman,
credit.
I think medyo may na-miss si interpreter kanina na I think Mr. Michael Yang also mentioned that he guaranteed for us.
No. Guarantee meaning salita lamang. Laway lang na ito si Mr. Ong kaya kayong bayaran ito. Yun lang. Ikaw lahat ang
Yes, po.
nagbabayad. Ang tanong ko sa iyo, how did you pay the suppliers? Money transfer, LC?
Yung mga ibang supplier namin talaga nagta-transfer talaga kami. Wala po naman pong LC nung time na yan. Tapos may mga ibang supplier na hindi namin kayang bayaran. Humingi na po kami ng tulong kay Mr. Michael Yang, which he guaranteed with the supplier na pag nakatanggap po kami ng bayad from the government, and then that's the time we pay na lang.
There you go. So, medyo laway ang puhunan. Hintay muna kayo makasingil sa gobyerno at hindi naman kayo makakasingil sa gobyerno kung hindi kayo nakapag-supply. So, utang. At garantya ni Mr. Yang, kaya kayo pinayagan ng suppliers na tuloy-tuloy ang pag-supply sa inyo sa pamamagitan ng garantya ni Mr. Yang doon sa mga Chinese suppliers.
Parang tama po kayo. So, ganito po yung more or less ganito po yung logic. Yes, po.
Parang tama.
Lincoln, ganito, no?
Yes, po.
Kasi
Yes.
mahirap na makipag-transact ka sa napakalaking halaga nang walang involved na mga letters of credit, no? Yung cash, parang garantya lang ni Mr. Yang, babayaran kayo niyan, pautangin kayo ng sabihin na nating 100,000,000 o bilyon, maski i-convert no ng renminbi, malaking halaga yon. So tama na yung garantya ni Mr. Yang na babayaran kayo ni Mr. Lincoln Ong, supplyan nyo yan at sigurado makakasingil yan. Ganun ang gusto nyo palabasin, di ba?
Mr. Chairman, nung time na yun, actually we were expecting the project to be very quick eh. So, yun po. Humingi po talaga kami ng tulong kay Mr. Michael Yang.
Hindi ko, parang parang sari-sari store na o kaya parang transaksyon na bilihan ng sasakyan lang na o gagarantyahan ko, babayaran ka nito, binigay na sa iyo sasakyan. Ito, bilyon ito eh. Ganun bang kadali yun? At saka government transaction. Dapat kompleto yung inyong papeles, mga import permit. Siyempre sa customs mahigpit, hingan kayo ng mga letters of credit, di ba? Sabi mo walang letters of credit, wala kang maipapakita na LC. Ang sabi mo kung hindi cash, garantya lang ni Mr. Yang, dumarating yung supplies ninyo. Bilyon ito. Ganun kadali?
Mr. Chairman, hindi po talaga madali nung mga nangyari nung panahon na yon.
Hindi talaga madali. Kaya alam mo, Lincoln, hindi nga ka panipiniwala ganun kadali ang transaksyon involving billions of pesos. Yun ang sinasabi ko. Nagarantya lang ni Mr. Yang, darating yung supply ninyo at sigurado raw kayo makakasingil. Ngayon, paano magagarantyahan ni Mr. Yang na makakasingil kayo kaagad para mabayaran yung mga sinusupply ng mga Chinese firms, yung 4 na Chinese firms?
Mr. Chair, I cannot answer for Mr. Michael Yang.
Ayun nga, nagtuturuan na kayong dalawa ngayon. Sabi ni Mr. Yang, ikaw ang diretsong nakipagtransaksyon doon sa mga Chinese firms at siya lang ang nagpakilala. Ngayon, hindi ka privy sa pag-uusap ni Michael Yang doon sa mga Chinese suppliers. Ang sinasabi naman ni Mr. Yang, hindi siya privy sa pakipag-usap mo sa mga Chinese suppliers. Now, which is the truth?
The truth is, Mr. Chairman, the truth is talaga, Mr. Chairman, tumulong talaga po si Mr. Michael Yang. And then, I think he's really connected within in China. Tapos po, meron naman po kaming NOAA nung time na yan. So I think it's also a good proof and boost of confidence to these suppliers.
Yeah, I know that. But this is a government transaction. Hindi ito yung bilihan. Nakita kayo sa isang lugar, sa isang restaurant, pinakilala sa yung supplier, at naniwala yung supplier, sinupplyan ka ng kung ano mo yung pinag-uusapan yung bilihan. This involves billions of pesos. Sabi ko nga, hindi ganun kasimple na isang garantya pagbibigyan ka ng suppliers. Ang sabi ni Mr. Yang, hindi niya na alam kung paano kayo nag-usap ng suppliers. Ang sinasabi mo ngayon, hindi mo na alam kung paano nakipag-usap si Mr. Yang sa mga suppliers. Ang tanong ko, alin ang totoo sa dalawa?
Totoo po yun na pagdating sa negotiation ng mga delivery at pricing, kami na po talaga ni supplier nagka-finalize. Totoo po yun. at inaamin ko rin po na na pagdating sa mga bayaran, we also need Mr. Michael Yang's guarantee.
Parang paniwalaan yan, Lincoln, kasi napakalaking halaga nito at government transaction pa ito para isimplify nyo ng ganon ang inyong pakipag-usap. So wala kayong LC?
Ano po? LC po? Wala
LC,
po.
Walang gamit na LC?
Wala po.
Money
Wala
transfer?
po LC po.
Money transfer?
Meron po.
How did you make the money transfer? Bank to bank?
Pagdating po sa our internal operation, pag nagre-remit po kami sa mga supplier, we use telex, yung maayos po na na transaction.
Do you have documents to show your proof of payment to sa mga suppliers?
We have all those documents as long as it's wala naman pong rights or may evaluate sa amin. We are more than willing to cooperate.
Okay. How much in total did you pay the 4 suppliers? Doon sa mga dumating, yung na-procure ninyo and supplied to the PS-DBM, magkano yung binayaran nyo sa mga suppliers?
Sir, Mr. Chairman, wala po kasi sa amin yung mga, sa akin po, wala po talaga sa akin ng record. I think I have to access our accounting records.
No, but ikaw nakipag-usap sa mga suppliers, may idea ka kung magkano yung presyo na binayaran mo doon, di ba?
Mr. Chairman, kasi medyo ano na po yun trade secret na po yun parang hindi po kaming komportable na ibulgar na po sa publiko.
Just as an intervention, Senator Lacson.
Go ahead with the permission of Senator Lacson.
Yes, sir, these are public funds. These are subject to audit by the COA. And you better, and even if you do not testify, COA has the power to inquire. Pwede pong tanungin, tingnan ang records ng Pharmally kung magkano binayad nyo sa inyong mga supplier. Lalo na po, kaya na may testimony rito, na mukhang wala naman kayong pera, paano nyo na-erase yung 7 billion na pambayad ninyo? So pwede pong tingnan yan ng COA dahil transaction, dahil pera ng taong bayan yan. Pwede pong nasa kapangyarihan ng COA na tingnan. So sabihin mo na kung ano ang totoo. Dahil pwede ma-check po yan.
Mr. Chair, thank you po sa enlightenment. Definitely makikipag-cooperate kami sa mga ahensya pagdating sa mga ganitong investigation. Salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Kaya nga, di sabihin mo na, makikipag-cooperate, tinatanong ka na, hindi mo naman sinasagot.
Mr. Chair, I myself alone cannot answer that question kasi kumpanya po kami, allow us to have a meeting on it, tapos pag-usapan namin, and then we seek guidance with our accountants and lawyer, and then definitely, pagka kinakailangan namin makipag-cooperate sa COA, gagawin po namin yun.
Okay, Mr. Lincoln Ong, with the permission of Mr. Chairman, may I continue?
Go ahead, please.
Puro verbal ba usapan niya? Did you have any document kung ano yung, meron kayong parang joint venture agreement with Mr. Yang?
We do have agreement po.
Yes. Do you have a copy of that agreement?
I don't have it with me, Mr. Chairman.
What kind of agreement do you have with Mr. Yang?
Hindi ko po talaga maalala nung mga specific content niya, Mr. Chairman. But sana po maintindihan nyo na kami po sa community namin, minsan, totoo po yun. Pagka minsan may mga transaction kami na minsan verbal talaga. Negosyante lang po.
But in this particular case, yung supplies ng mga PPEs, sinabi mo, meron kayong pinirmahan na agreement with Mr. Yang. Ang tanong ko, anong klaseng agreement? Anong klase yung pinirmahan yung dokumento? Anong form? Is it a joint venture agreement? Is it a contract?
Mr. Chair,
Can you please wait for the question to be formulated before you answer?
My apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, what document did you have or did you sign with Mr. Yang? Insofar as the supplies of the materials.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not really privy or hindi ko talaga ma-recall ngayon kung ano yung content but we do have kasulatan po.
Very important document, hindi mo matandaan kung anong form, joint venture ba, contract ba, hindi mo man lang maalala kung ano yon.
Meron po talaga ganun.
Anong klase nga?
Mr. Chair, hindi ako kasi baka po mali yung mga masabi ko ngayon tapos yung iba na may nakita ko.
Can you produce that?
Hanapin ko po sir. Yes po.
Mr. Yang
Yes po.
signed that document, I suppose, correct? As well as you did sign the same document. I have a question. You haven't answered. Both Mr. Yang and you signed that document which you said is in your possession, di ba? You cannot just recall kung ano yung pinirmahan nyo, but you did sign on the same piece of paper, on the same document.
Yes po.
Can you produce that and submit that to the committee?
Hanapin ko po, sir. Hanapin ko po and then definitely comply kami sa kung kailangan talaga.
So when you were dealing with the Chinese suppliers, you were traveling to China?
Ay, hindi po.
Who was traveling to China to deal with them?
Mr. Chair, kasi nung time na yan, that was pandemic. Maraming mga bansa na mga borders, mga sarado po.
Okay. So how did Mr. Yang introduce you to the Chinese suppliers? They came here, you went there by phone?
Puro by phone lang po, Mr. Chair. Tapos may mga tao po naman kami sa China.
Telepono lang, tinawagan ka ni Mr. Yang, pinakausap sa iyo yung Chinese supplier, all four of them, maybe one after the other, and that's it.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes po.
Okay. So, meron ka bang nilabas na cash?
Dito po sa site namin, sa site po namin ng Pharmally.
Sa Pharmally.
Yes po.
Dekano.
Estimate, how much cash did you, for this whole transaction, how much cash did you shell out? Whether it's advance payment, partial payment, how much?
Mr. Chair, I really have to refer it to our other partners for that. Kasi I really don't have to record it with me now.
Sinong partners ang pwedeng sumagot? Nandyan lahat yung partners mo eh.
Mr. Huang,
the name.
do you think you can access any document, Mr. Chair?
Who are you referring to? Mr.
Huang?
Okay, Mr. Huang.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Huang.
Mr. Huang, Mr. Chair, baka pwedeng makahingi po ng opportunity na para makapag opening statement po si Mr. Huang Suyan.
No. I'm asking him a question and you referred me to him. You referred the committee to Mr. Huang para sagutin yung tinatanong ko.
My apologies po.
How did you transact with or deal with the 4 Chinese suppliers? Kasi sabi mo, nirefer ka ni Mr. Yang. So how? Did you go to China? Did they come here? Sabi mo, by telepono lang. Ngayon, ang sagot mo, si Mr. Huang naman ang pwede sumagot nun. How? So I'm asking Mr. Huang. And now you're saying, mag-opening statement si Mr. Huang. Mr. Huang.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So how did you transact with the Chinese suppliers? The first time you were introduced by Mr. Yang.
I mean, to clarify one thing, I wish to state on record that Mr. Yang and I have not been in direct contact for since 2017 March. After that, after he introduced for my previous employer to invest in the companies, we stopped contacting each other. As for the question regarding how do we contact with the Chinese suppliers, I think most of the communications were done through WeChat. They will send us samples, they will send us pictures, and we'll relay to them our requirements of the amount, and then we will ask them for the supposed delivery dates and quantities they can match to that schedule, so that we can better prepare for our proposals.
So we're now back to Mr. Ong. Because as you mentioned, after the March 2017 encounter with Mr. Yang in Davao, you never had the chance to see him again or to talk to him again. So we're back to Mr. Ong. Ang tanong, how did you deal with the Chinese suppliers? Did you go to China? Ulitin ko naman, I hate to be repetitive, but you're not answering the questions directly.
Yes po, Mr. Chairman.
Unresponsive.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'm here po. Sorry po, last na po talaga. Yung ano po yung tanong nyo, isasagot ko talaga na maayos.
Ang sabi mo, pinakilala ka sa mga Chinese suppliers. Ang tanong ko, paano kayo nagkita o nag-uusap ng Chinese suppliers? 4 yon. O, pumunta ka ba ng China? Sabi mo, hindi. Ang nirefer mo ako kay Mr. Wang. Sabi ni Mr. Wang, hindi niya naman nami-meet si Mr. Yang. Ikaw talaga yung kausap ni Mr. Yang. O yun ang tanong.
Tama po kayo. Yes po, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman pala.
Hindi tama, how eh?
Ay, Mr. Chairman, nag-uusap talaga kami ng mga Chinese supplier through WeChats. Yung app po na WeChat.
Bilyon ang usapan nyo. WeChat lang kayo ng WeChat.
We were really not able to travel that time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, this is such a parliamentary inquiry. What is the status of the warrants of arrest issued against these people? Those who were issued warrants of arrest? They still stand. Am I correct, Mr. Chairman?
The warrant of arrest was based on a contempt of not showing up. You can now issue another warrant for contempt for being evasive, and obviously the witness is being evasive, and the chair will entertain any motion to cite this gentleman in contempt for lying or evasiveness under the rules.
Yes, if I may move or issue the motion, Mr. Chairman, it's not only Mr. Ong that's being evasive. I think Mr. Yang, likewise, is being evasive because we cannot get a clear answer. They're pointing to each other, and clearly they're being evasive. So I would, I really would move either not to lift the warrant of arrest previously issued by the Senate President or issue a subsequent warrant of arrest for being evasive.
Well,
against whom? Against whom?
Against Mr. Yang.
Both Mr. Yang and Mr. Ong. That is the motion. Well, the chair supports your motion, and the whole world will know that there is a pending warrant of arrest for Mr. Yang and Mr. Ong, if the committee so pleases.
Second the motion, Mr. Chair.
All right. No objection. The chair hereby orders that Mr. Lincoln Ong and Mr. Yang are placed under arrest. And there are reasons for it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lacson. Mr. Yang was asked when was the only time he did not readily say that he presented himself during the meeting in May 17. You had to pry it out from him. On the other hand, this guy says, and he says that he never had any. Wala silang dealing directly, sabi ni Mr. Yang, sa Pharmally. And yet ngayon, sinasabi ni Mr. Ong na nagagarad siya si Mr. Ong. In fact, if I may add, sir, with your permission, Mr. Lacson, itong sinabi po ng Presidente, ano bang reklamo ninyo? Kasi si Michael Yang daw, negosyante ito. Adre, hindi naman ito sabihin mo na nagtatapon ito ng pera. May contact ito sa China na malalaking korporasyon at siya ang nagpagador. In other words, siya ang gumagaransya talaga ng bayad o siya ang magbabayad sa made their entry here. So yun ang sinabi ng Presidente. Which, again, quote-unquote yun, which supports the statement made by Mr. Ong na ginagaransyahan ni Mr. Yang. So hindi totoo na wala siyang transaksyon, ginagaransyahan niya lahat yung ino-order nila. At dahil dyan, dapat nakita na talagang may relasyon talaga si Mr. Yang sa Pharmally. At ang masasabi ko lang, dapat tanongin pa natin si Mr. Ong para masarado na yung kanyang statement na makikita talaga na nagsisinungaling siya. And go ahead, Mr. Lacson. You can go ahead. This is your time to ask them.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Ang sunod na tanong ko, dahil sinabi nila, binabayaran nila ng money transfer or cash yung suppliers. So, saan kayo bumibili ng foreign exchange? Kasi hindi naman nyo pwedeng bayaran ng pesos, di ba? So, how do you do it? Where do you buy your foreign exchange? In this case, renminbi. How did you secure the foreign currency to pay your suppliers?
Proper bank transaction po yun, Mr. Chairman. Hindi po siya renminbi, Mr. Chairman. US dollar po, Mr. Chairman.
Renminbi, ang tinatanong sa iyo, saan ka kumukuha ng foreign exchange para bayaran yung mga tao doon? Siyempre, magre-remit ka. Magre-remit ka, di ba? So, saan kayo kumukuha ng pera pambayad doon?
Pag dito po sa Philippine side, we transact with our bank.
Sinong bank?
Union Bank.
At kailan kayo una nag-transact?
We have to check the record, pero continuous naman yung transaction.
Sinabi ka ni Wang na ang unang transaction niya sa Union Bank ay November. That is a full 7 months. 7 buwan magmula nung nakakuha kayo ng malalaking kontrata na sunod-sunod na linggo nung Abril. Nasa record yan. Binasa ko na kayo na. So it took you 7 months bago kayo magsanda. Ang hiniram nyo doon, 500 million. Sa makatwid, nagbabayad kayo between that time ng pera. Saka lang kayo umutang nung nagkaroon na kayo ng pera. Kuno. Hindi ako naniniwala dahil ang tingin ko nagbabayad kayo. Pero hindi nyo masabi kung saan nyo kinukuha yung pera. Galing ba yan sa ibang sources na illicit?
Hindi po, Mr. Chair. Meron po kaming mga sariling pondo rin. At
bigla may sariling pondo na naman. Sige.
Opo.
Specifically, Senator Gordon, kaninong pera, bank accounts, kung saan nanggaling yung niremit nyo sa mga supplier?
If ever magre-remit kami sa mga supplier, dapat po talaga manggagaling sa namin, sa bank account namin.
Kaya nga, so aling bank, sino ang may-ari nito mga bank accounts at magkano ang niremit nyo?
Corporation po namin, yung Pharmally Pharmaceutical po.
Yung korporasyon nyo, Mr. Ong, ang pera is 625,000 lang.
Pesos.
Ikaw naman, peso, 625,000 pesos lang. Kaya hindi pwede bang gagaling sa korporasyon ninyo kung milyon-milyon ang binabayad nyo sa Chinese suppliers. Sabi mo, galing sa bangko. Tanong ngayon, sino ba may-ari ng mga account na yun?
Corporate account po, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, talaga nagsisinungaling ito eh.
Ay.
Talaga.
How can it be a corporate account? With the
Mr.
account
Chairman.
where, sorry, Senator Ping.
Senator Lacson, go ahead.
Established very clearly na ang pera ninyo 625 pesos. Ang tanong ni Senator Dillon, 625,000 pesos. Ang tanong ni Senator Dillon, 625,000 pesos. Tapos ang nire-remit ninyo, sabi mo, galing din sa corporation ninyo, sa Pharmally, maliwanag yan. Hindi sa ibang corporation, hindi kayo nangutang at lahat. Saan ang galing yung perang nire-remit nyo sa China? Sabihin na natin galing sa bangko rito. Ang sagot mo, galing sa corporation nyo. Ang liit nga ng capital ng corporation ninyo, 625. That's the question. How do you reconcile that?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, pwede na po ba ako magpaliwanag?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Kanina
Okay,
ka
thank you,
papaliwanag, hindi
Mr.
mo
Thank
kita
you,
pinipigilan.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marami pong kasing series of transaction yun. So, meron naman po kami naiipon na pera. So that's our pondo. And then at the same time, sa mga series of transactions, pagka medyo malaki na po yung project, kinakailangan din po namin mangutang sa mga kaibigan. So, hindi ko po dinideny na meron kaming mga utang sa labas.
Hindi naman yan ang problema eh. Bilyon-bilyon ang tinatransact nyo. Marami kayong kaibigan. Kailangan paliwanag kung saan rin kinuha ng mga kaibigan nyo yung pera niyan. Paliwanag kayo sa Money Laundering Council.
Definitely, sige po.
Sige, sagutin mo.
Ay, definitely po, kinakailangan po namin makipag-cooperate sa anti-money laundering.
Talaga mag-cooperate ka.
Tapos po,
Senator Dick.
Senator Dillon, you have a question?
Senator Dick, the first transaction of Pharmally is 54 million. The money that they had was 625,000. All right. So where did the 53 million come from? He said from bank accounts. Whose bank account? Because it cannot come.
Corporate account, sagot niya.
Corporate yung korporasyon ng pera? 625,000?
Mr. Chairman, on the screen, ito yung timelines, ano? Ewan ko kung sisingit dito yung nakasingit sila para gamitin lang pera. Look, and I'd like to address these questions also to Mr. Lau, ano? January 2, you were appointed and sabi mo nag-apply ka. Where is your letter of application? Do you have a copy to be appointed under Secretary, OIC, PS-DBM, at the same time, Executive Director?
It should be distinguished between the two. My statement is I applied as Undersecretary, which I was appointed to as Undersecretary in DBM. With respect to Executive Director, I never applied for it. It was already stated, I think, last year and this year, Senate investigation, that there was a vacuum when the Executive Director was removed from office by reason of lack of qualification.
Alam na natin yon, Attorney Lau, alam na natin yon. Huwag natin ulitin. Ano?
Okay. After she was removed from office, there was a vacuum. I was instructed to be OIC only. So the Secretary of DBM was the one who executed the OIC. Yun po.
Okay,
So
alam na natin yan. Never mind.
Yes, sir.
February 4, you wrote the Civil Service Commission requesting that reclassify yung mga employees, yung mga staff sa PS-DBM as confidential employees. Why did you do that?
When I took into office on January 2020, I noticed that a lot of positions have been vacant by reason of high turnover rate. Ang high turnover rate, mabilis po yung alisan dyan kasi nga walang security of tenure. Second po, when I took that position, na-notice ko rin po na very few are interested in applying. So, ang third din po, when I checked it, there was a structured proposal by a consultant of the previous executive director, Ms. May Cuevas, that they have this proposed structure. Kasi nga medyo problematic yung structure ng PS-DBM. In fact, previous to me, PS-DBM was being moved to be either demolished or when tanggalin na sila sa operations, or they will be incorporated as a GOCC. So based on that, as part of my professional work, I consulted the Civil Service Commission as to the feasibility whether or not these positions, which are crucial, can be or may not be considered as confidential positions. It's a consultation. However, there was no response for an entire year. Lacking the response, we continued operating the PS-DBM in a usual manner based on the existing structure.
Mr. Attorney Lau, dahil walang security of tenure, konti nag-a-apply, ang solusyon mo, gawing confidential employees. Hindi mo ba alam na ang confidential employees, wala rin security of tenure?
No, sir. That's part of it. Kasi nga, the purpose we wrote that letter, kasi nga mayroong mga concerns again. It's a point of inquiry. Hindi, we inquired if it can be. Kasi nga part of the dilemma of the PS-DBM status yun. Kasi if you look at until now, that's a problem eh. Mabilis
Ito letter mo nakapula sa board, Attorney Lau.
Yes, sir.
In spite of the agency status, it is also vital for the agency head to appoint officials and personnel with utmost trust and confidence that are capable of handling highly confidential delegations on top of the regular functions. Ano yung highly confidential? Procurement yung pag-uusapan natin. It should be transparent.
Yes, whether or not they are confidential or not, Mr. Chairman, it will be transparent because everything is public record and everything is on record. Even all the senator's office have confidential employees, but these are all transparent. Kahit saan po tayo ganun. So these director positions and EA positions, as for a formal ED, it's a nature of employment that they can be hired or fired at any time by reason of confidence. Whether slow ang performance, you can be fired. Kasi, di ba, it's an ongoing, recurring issue kasi before. Is the sales, the slow-moving items na hindi mabenta, yung operations namin, di ba? It's part of the system. And regardless kasi, it's being painted na there is an ill motive. Let me point it to the public. I was designated as OIC. Regardless whether this letter will be approved or denied, it will not make a difference on my part because I am not the appointing authority. The executive director has the authority to appoint, hire, or fire employees in PS-DBM. However, I am an OIC based on the designation by the Secretary of Budget and Management. My only authority is to manage the office. I have no authority to hire or to fire. Now, that letter will not benefit me in any manner if it is approved or denied because I cannot hire or fire. But I wrote that letter as part of my function as OIC. In any event that there is a new executive director, they will benefit from it. It's a legal question. Diba? The only function, diba? The question is, pinagawa mo yan kasi gusto mo. No, I don't have the authority because I'm just an OIC. It is clear in the designation on my person that my only responsibility is to run the day-to-day operations of the office. The authority to appoint was not part of the ones dedicated to me. So whether or not that civil service letter would be acted upon positively or negatively, it will not affect my OIC designation. Second, it's a pure letter. Di ba? Oh, what difference does it make? It doesn't make any difference kasi a year after pa ang response ng civil service. On the third point, to say, kasi may predetermination yan, may plan-plunder, I'll just answer it straight. February 4, there is no COVID.
Mr. Chairman.
I plan, magkaka-COVID tayo.
Mr. Chairman, Attorney Lau,
Go ahead, sir.
yeah, Attorney Lau said that 1 year pa nag-respond yung Civil Service Commission. Is that correct? Did I hear him correctly, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I believe so, Mr. Chairman. 1
Yeah.
year ba?
No, March 9, the CSC denied your request. Andiyan, no? Nasa timeline. And I have here the copy of the resolution signed by Chairperson De La Rosa Bala, Commissioner Lisada, and Acting Director for Del Moro. Hindi 1 year.
Yes.
Denied your request.
It's more than a year. It's more than a year because I wrote the letter on February 2020.
So that's March 9, 2021?
Yes, March 9, 2021 po. It's more than a year ang response nila. So while they didn't make any response, we ended upon our function in the office remained the same as before I entered into office. So we just continued the operations, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, moving forward, let's go back to the transaction. Anyway, March 20, merong FDA circular. Ang requirement do sa mga importers ng PPEs, LTO, license to operate, and proof of application for notification, yun ang sufficient compliance for customs release. And then, on April 6, FDA Circular 2020-547, ang kailangan na lamang LTO sufficient na compliance for customs release. And true enough, April 15, ito na yung na-award na kayo ng 54 million pesos for the supply of 2.4 million surgical masks at 22 pesos and 50 centavos each. I'm referring to Pharmally, of course. And then March 16 or April 16, dito yung nakasingit pa yung 2782, no? Ang presyo nyo kasi 22.50, 27.82 and 22 pesos per piece. And then, fast forward, May 28, kasi marami na kayo, 3.8 billion na yung contract nyo ng 1,910 sets of PPEs. Tapos purchase order May 8. May 26, naglabas uli yung FDA Circular 2020-018. Importers of PPE, LTO shall be sufficient compliance for the customs release. Importers are advised to apply CPN, Certificate of Product Notification, prior to commercial sale and distribution of medical services. And then November 9, LTO and CPN, pati yung CMDN for customs release. No? The reason why I'm pointing this out, Mr. Chairman, parang there's a grand scheme to really allow Pharmally enough leeway to import all these medical supplies. That's the point I'm trying to raise, Mr. Chairman. And again, unless Mr. Lincoln Ong, Michael Yang, and the rest of Pharmally Pharmaceuticals, the incorporators, will tell us the truth in this hearing, then we can just speculate on what really happened, or the circumstances behind all these transactions. So I think I have exceeded my time, the time allotted to me, Mr. Chairman. Otherwise, I will have to proceed to another matter.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
well, if you have more questions, the chairman has the leeway to allow you to continue the questions because you're on point. But I see Senator Diron having a question. Go ahead, Senator Diron.
Yes.
Senator Dillon, you're on mute.
Yes. Just to go back to Mr. Lincoln Ong, here is a resource person who is clearly lying on the record because he says the funds were corporate funds of Pharmally. But the financial statement, the audited financial statement, indicates that beginning of 2020, they had only 625,000, which is the paid up capital. Clearly, the corporation had no capacity to pay the initial order of 54 million. So it is not true at all. And there is a deliberate effort to mislead the committee by saying these are corporate funds. We asked him, who advanced this payment? He said it was from bank accounts of Union Bank or something. Who owns the bank accounts? He is already evasive. This witness, Mr. Chairman, is clearly lying. And in the case of Arnold, which is a 1950 case, this Senate has the power to detain, as we have detained people, until they tell us the truth. This witness is both evasive and refuses to answer or telling a lie. And therefore, he has been declared in contempt. Earlier, we move that the contempt order be now executed, and we send our sheriffs, our security people to arrest Mr. Ong right now?
Yes, I can see some. Is that Mr. Lincoln? Are you raising your hand? You have a chance
Yes
to
po.
rectify the matter.
Will I be allowed to clarify on the
Yes,
issues?
you have a chance to rectify the matter. You've been very, very evasive. The chair is giving you enough leeway to rectify the matter, but so far, you've messed of yourselves, of Mr. Young's statement, and Mr. Wang's statement. Yes.
Mr.
You know
Chair.
what? You know what? I will change my ruling here. Will you please put your mask off? You are alone in the sala. I want to see because you keep looking upward. Is somebody dictating questions in an earphone to you?
Ay, no po, Mr. Chairman. Pwede ko po tanggalin ng
Take your
aking
mask
mask.
off. Just humor me. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
What are you gonna say?
Mr. Chairman, kasi po ang tanong kanina is tungkol dun po sa very specific allow me to take you point by point. Ang pinakaunang po transaction namin, our first ever transaction is 500,000 surgical mask. That time, I have access to supplier. That the supplier is willing to give us the stocks. Pag nakapagkuha na kami ng bayad sa gobyerno, tsaka namin siyang babayaran. That same goes to the 54 million na 2.4 million pieces and 10.
Meron bang
Ay,
DVD
Mr. Chair,
taas?
meron po akong mga records para po namin ma-explain po sa inyo na maayos.
Sige, paliwanag mo.
Opo. So, for the first ever transaction po na 500,000, may access po talaga kami sa inventory ng mga importers. Nung time niya, wala pa kami, I don't think we have an importer license. So, yung importer mismo nagtitiwala naman po sa akin. So, binigay sa akin ng stocks para ma-supply ko kay PS-DBM. And same goes on the 2.4 at
So you're changing your answer again. You're changing your answer again. Bago na naman to, nang hirap kayo ng doon sa may importer's license, yung ba gusto mong paniwalaan namin?
Mr. Chairman.
Kaya na mahirap kung nagsisinungaling, nagkakatampak-tampak ka sa lalakaran mo.
At saka hindi lang yun, Mr. Chairman. Sabi niya kanina, binayaran nila out of corporate funds.
Yes.
So, now he's saying that this was loaned, this face mask and face shields were, loaned to them, whatever is the transaction, which enabled them to supply it to the government. Ganun po ba yun? Kailan nangyari ito? Kailan nangyari ito? Kailan nangyari ang pag-deliver sa inyo ng supplier ng 500,000 face masks? Kailan?
Nung meron na pong kaming order from the PS-DBM, pinadeliver ko na agad. At pag nakakuha kami bayad, babayaran na agad yung supplier.
Nga kayo kumuha ng bayad.
Ay, Mr. Chair, yung itong tatlo pong face mask, ano talaga, as in on credit talaga, as in binigay lang, pinautang lang talaga sa amin ng supply yung mga stocks. Pag nakapagkuha kami ng bayad, babayaran namin yung mga supplier.
Yun yung supplier na ni-refer ni Mr. Yang.
Ay, Mr. Chairman, yung kay Mr. Yang naman, yun yung malaking PPE na. Yun po yung kinakailangan namin ng tulong ni Mr. Yang.
At doon nilabas
nakikilan talaga si Mr. Yang.
Dito sa mga ibang transaction, hindi po talaga. Dito sa malaking transaction.
Niluloko mo ba kami? Doon na kailangan si Mr. Yang. Ngayon, hindi po talaga. Sino ba niluloko?
Mr. Chairman, I move to arrest this Mr. Lincoln Ong and detain him until he tells us, he answers the questions and not be evasive, and until he tells us the truth.
Second, Senator Lacson?
Yes, the same contempt citation should be issued against Michael Yang because earlier, when I asked him what role did he play, ang sagot niya, ang role niya lang was to introduce and then left them alone, which, as it appears now, is not the case because he played a major role in continuously dealing with the suppliers by way of guaranteeing that they will be paid by Mr. Ong.
Yes.
So,
upon the
Yes.
yes, the questions raised earlier by Senator Lacson. First, Mr. Yang said he had no connection with Pharmally and learned only about Pharmally in the news. That's on record. And then after which he changed his position. He said he only met Pharmally in 2017 and never met them again. And then later on, Mr. Wang admits to knowing Mr. Lincoln Ong of Pharmally. And then he says he introduced Lincoln Ong to the supplier. So he's just like the variant, just like the virus, his answers are mutating.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
May we be allowed to speak?
Yes, of course. This is a free country.
我当时给他们介绍是他们问我，我跟他说你可以相信是邻里，他们没关系。我是口头给他们这个叫他们相信他。
Mr. Chairman, what Mr. Yang said is that at that time when he introduced Lincoln to the suppliers, is he also told them that they can trust Mr. Lincoln in terms of payment, that they can make their own payment. And this is a Chinese way of making or doing business is mainly because of trust.
They're public funds and they will be liable for it. And there are rules about money. You cannot just produce money from out of nowhere. Yan lang ipapaliwanag. You have to learn, you have to know that the money has got to be explained. All right? So, you know, it cannot be like that. And let me just say, and let me just ask a question to Mr. Yang. Mr. Yang, you do not speak any language except Chinese?
你除了中文不会讲其他的语言吗？
你跟他说我会一点点大家乐，可是我这种没办法很新的，我没办法跟他们。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that he knows a little bit of Tagalog.
Yes, all right.
But
you've been here since 1996, is that correct?
一点点。
Yeah.
No, you've been here since 1996. Correct?
Yeah, he was here 1999, Mr. Chairman.
1999. Okay, I know that you were here 1996. I got some information like that, no? But you are the appointed presidential economic advisor. How did you communicate to the president then?
那你怎么当时你是怎么跟那个
I'm sure the president does speak Chinese.
他说平时简单的会，重要的我们都有翻译。
Normally, they would be having an interpreter present, Mr. Chairman.
All right, let me show you your movie. Okay, can you show the thing in? And I will ask the Senate to please take a look at how familiar the situation is for Mr. Yang. Very confident. Please, quickly, please, and while we're doing that, show the other picture. You're talking to the president. Correct?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, we didn't hear your question.
You were the one introducing to everybody. You had a big smile in your face. You were very confident.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang is saying that his Tagalog has limitation.
Sorry?
His Tagalog has limitation, Mr. Chairman. Only the simple ones.
But all I'm saying is, do not make it appear that you need a translator because you're the presidential economic advisor, and you have to speak somewhere in English or in Tagalog. And if you have an interpreter, Malacanang, which is the corridor of principal power in this country, and that could, and then you can say you don't understand it, and that's one of the advantages that you may have. There you go, another picture that shows you're talking to the president. I think that is in the president's office or somewhere else.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang is saying
trying to make a point here that you can speak to the president in Tagalog or English or whatever it is you're speaking to.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang is saying that he can converse casually but with limited Tagalog only.
That's already pointed out. All right.
Yes.
I can ask you in Tagalog, and I'm sure you'll understand. After all, you've been here for the last 22 years.
非语问你肯定会。
说我这个我一般跟他说有简单的会一般我没办法全部理解，我没办法答复。
Mr. Chairman, in terms of Tagalog, he may not be able to 100% grasp the proper
I'm
meaning.
ready to accept that already.
Mr. Chairman.
Tatanungin ko lang ngayon, sino ba ang nagsabi kay Ong
Xiang
na Iyang lumapit?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you repeat the question? Sino po
Going back to
nagsabi?
Mr. Ong.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave the chairman's video, may I just ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Yang, talking again about that video that the chairman showed,
关于刚才那个视频，
two men to your right in the video,
那两个人在你的右边是
Mr.
谁？
Zeng Bing Chang, and isn't the other one Mr.
一个是
Alan
郑
Lim?
炳强，一个是 Alan Lim 吗？
他说这个是我朋友，这个说郑炳强跟阿兰林，给他说林伟雄，这个林伟雄是给他说是林伟雄，是我朋友。
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang is saying that the two person, that is one Cheng Ping Chiang and the other one is Lin Wei Xiong. These are his friends.
So is Mr. Lin Wei Xiong the same as Mr. Alan
在
Lim?
问林伟雄是跟 Alan Lim 一个人吗？
我不知道。
He doesn't know, Mr. Chairman.
I'll leave it at that for now, Mr. Chairman, but I think Mr. Yang knows more than he is answering at this moment. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
He's under contempt. He's not very forthright. I have many pictures of Mr. Wang with Mr. Lim. Can you show the other pictures, please? And now you got this. I did research. I didn't have to research it. I just had to look at some newspaper accounts. There. Mr. Wang, is that Alan Lin again?
问这个是不是 Alan Lim？
你跟他说我只有认识他叫林伟雄，我13年才认识他。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang saying that he get to know Mr. Lin Wei Xiong only on 2013 by the name of Lin Wei Xiong.
That was not my question. Okay, but anyway, what is his name? Lin Wei Xiong.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Lin Wei Xiong.
In fact, he was the same guy that was charged with
他说他这个人
involvement in drugs. And I'll show you the charge sheet.
这个你们要去调查，我不知道。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang.
I have to go because the other senators have said that you're lying. So just want to test your credibility again.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang is saying that he doesn't know about the accusation about Mr. Alan Lim that you were saying earlier.
But you have been friends with him since 2013, as you say, and he's always with you. All right? And Mr. Lin, go ahead, answer.
他在问嘛，你是13年就从跟这个 Alan Lim 做朋友，对吗？
跟他说认识就开始做朋友嘛，就说做朋友嘛。
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just confirmed with Mr. Yang. He said that yes, 2013 he met the person by the name of Lin Wei Xiong.
Yeah, and you are both
你们两个
in Piley Holdings.
都是在百利。
You are a director, and I will show you. Please show the holdings of Piley, and along with the others. Quickly, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that yes, he is a business partner in under Piley Holdings.
All right, so saan yung record na may charge sheet siya, yung pinakita ni Colonel Sherto, di ba? And then go ahead, there you go. Is this the same man that you're talking about?
I'm sorry, come again, Mr. Chairman.
I'm showing to you a picture of Wenli Chen,
Alan
Lin, and that's initial profile of the drug personality. Is that Alan Lin there?
We don't have the picture yet.
Can you show the picture?
他就是在问你，他们会给你看一个照片吗？就是说林伟是啊 ，There's no picture being shown yet.
Bear with me for a while. We're trying very hard to show the picture so that you can see it. There, can you show it now? Can you see it now? Can you see it now, please? Can everybody see it? Wala pa rin?
Wala pa rin po, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry. Okay. We'll take one try and then we'll show it again. So I will ask a question to Mr. Ekman as you're trying to show it. All right? Mr. Lin, obviously you're good friends, right? There are other pictures with you on the beach. Can you show the picture on the beach muna? Again, I got this from these are public yeah, there you go. There you go. There.
这我不知道啊，给他说我就
That's Lin or Wen Li Chen or is he the same man?
他在问这些是一样的人吗？
我给他说我不知道我。
I don't know, Mr. Chairman.
You've been friends with him for 13 years and you don't know?
你是跟他们是已经13年的朋友，你不知道吗？
我说我认识林伟雄啊。
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said he only knows a person by the name of Lin Wei Xiong, but not the one.
I've shown you the picture. Di ba? Magkamukha ba? As a senator, so take a look at it.
是不是有相似吗？他那个
这个很模糊，我跟他说我认识林伟雄，刚才林伟雄我认识，这些照片你这我不看得很清楚，我不。
Mr. Chairman, he's saying that the picture is very blurred. He couldn't confirm.
Well, I don't think it's blurred, but anyway, I'm sorry I have to ask you these questions. I don't want to put you in discomfort. But I have to ask you this just to be sure.
Ayan nakalagay yung pangalan ni Lin Wei Xiong.
Oo nga eh.
Oh, kilala niya.
The Senate President said the name of Wen Lin Shen is there. All right? I'm sorry, we have to ask you this.
He can't understand the English, Mr. Chairman, so he couldn't read it.
You can, right?
Yes.
Translate, please.
Okay. 他叫我解释嘛，因为他这边有说 with possible true Chinese 有可能性，他实际的中文名字是林伟雄。
这个跟他说你们政府要去查我，跟他说我只有认识林伟雄。
Mr. Chairman, he said that because what was written. Okay. Okay. Mr. Chairman, he's saying that he only knows Mr. Lin Wei Xiong, and that if you have
You're saying that's not the same
government
person?
agency to do the proper investigation.
You're saying that's not the same person?
你说就是跟这个人不是一样的。
我不是说我认不太清楚，你不能。
He couldn't confirm.
之后你们要去查。
He couldn't confirm, like he said.
你们要去查嘛。
You have Mr. Yang saying you have to do the investigation. He couldn't confirm.
All right, but again, I show you some pictures again that we got from the public sources. These are your pictures together. Are you? You're supposed to be a good judge of character. You're perched in high places, and there you go. You're with the president, with him again. And then again, another picture, I think, on the beach, if I'm not mistaken. Can you show that? I really apologize. I don't want to put you in discomfort, but you know, this is an investigation where a lot of our people are involved. A lot of people are hungry. A lot of people have been deprived of their ayuda or help.
Here it is. Like,
can you make it a little bigger, please?
他说这个照片他们会播放大一点。
There you go. That is Mr. Alan Lin, or
他说那个是 Alan
Fred again, and Michael Yang are the two men at the extreme left.
而你在左边。
你告诉我认识是林伟雄，我不认识的是阿兰念是谁
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that he only knows Lin Wei Xiong and he doesn't know any person by the name of Alan Lim.
Well, that's the same person that I showed you. All right.
他说那是同样的人。
你这同样的联系你说了，我不知道啊，不能问我。
That is based on your statements, Mr. Chairman, but he cannot confirm that. Yeah, he only says that he only
I'm just asking you. I'm just asking you. I've not made any conclusion. I'm just asking you. These are one and the same person.
你刚刚说我就是给你答了，我认识林伟雄啊。
I already replied that I only know Lin Wei Xiong.
All right. Okay. You are also in a corporation that involves a certain lady by the name of Rose Nono Lim. Familiar with her?
有一个叫做 Rose Nono Lin， 你认识她吗？
刚刚说有啊。
Yes, yes, Mr. Chairman.
In fact, she is the president of a corporate secretary, if I'm not mistaken, Jason Uson in Piley Holdings, Rose Nono Lin, corporate secretary, Yan Hong Lin. And then again, you see Lin Wei Xiong, aka Alan Lim, vice chairman.
Vice chairman.
刚刚说是啊，这是我们的股东。
Yes, Mr. Lin Wei Xiong is one of our stakeholders, and Rose Nono Lin as well.
And is he married to Rose Lim?
Come again, Mr. Chairman, sorry.
Is he the Eco Tai Tai of, is Rose Lim Eco Tai Tai of Lin Wei Xiong, your good friend?
他在问Rose Nono Lin 是不是林伟雄
girlfriend?
我知道是几，我说我看到林伟雄是他罗斯林是他妇联队。
Yes, Lin Wei Xiong is the husband of Rose Nono Lin.
Thank you. And then Piley Estate Group. You were there again. Yang Hong Jian. I'm sorry, that's your brother, right? Hong Jian. Yang.
Hong Yang Jiang 是你的
brother?
刚刚说是我的哥哥啊。
Yes, it's his brother, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So again, by affinity, Alan Lim's in this corporation, the wife of Alan Lim, Rose Nono Lin, is also in this corporation, Piley Estate Group. And then the name of Power Megamix, shown here, Rose Nono Lim, again, president. She is, as you say, the wife. And also in Pharmally Biological, Wang Suyan appears again, our president who is here, Rose Nono Lin, treasurer, and there you go. Again, Rose Nono Lin, the wife of Mr. Lin Wei Xiong, right? And then as I go to the left, in Sean Wei, that is a Pogo Corporation. Are you familiar with that?
你认识熊伟吗？
熊伟是我认识，可是这个熊伟是他们的，我不知道，我认识。
He knows the company, but he only knows them. He knows the company, Mr. Chairman.
Sir, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying these are the things that we find out. And now, Mr. Lincoln Ong, who said that he gets guidance from you to make sure that you can guarantee, and the president himself says you are the pagador, which means that you really have connections with Pharmally, because Lincoln Ong is able to transact business without any documentation as to where the money came from. Go ahead, I'll allow you to translate.
你刚刚说我当时就是叫中国的人相信他，我没有给他签担保，我只有用叫中国人，我们中国的方式就是我介绍，我叫他相信他。
Okay, Mr. Chairman, what Mr. Yang basically did was to introduce Mr. Lincoln to his friends in China for potential being a supplier, and then he also mentioned that these people that they can trust on Lincoln to be able to.
So in fact, it is not accurate for you to say. And listen to my question, because you said first time you saw them and the last time you saw them was when you saw the president in March 2017. And then all of a sudden your name comes out, and now you're saying you introduced Mr. Lincoln Ong, and that his credit is good because you are practically, as Mr. Lincoln Ong says, practically a guarantor. Is that correct?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I may shed some light on that as well.
No. I'm asking the question here right now for the moment. I'll get to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience. So Mr. Lincoln Ong is being guaranteed by you And Mr. Lincoln Ong cannot show any paper trail that you got some money and that he's able to transact all these orders in China without any paper trail. And Mr. Wang says they have a bank which transacted, where they transacted a letter of credit. When I asked him, how did you manage to do that? Do you have a letter of credit? And I said, yes, very readily. And he said, which bank? He said, Union Bank. Very good bank. And yet, the transaction happened in November. For 7 months, 7 buwan, una kayo mag-transact noong April. So in between April and is it November? Where was the money coming from? And Lincoln said, "Oh, I was getting, aid from everybody. Ganyan ang Chinese way. We're not gonna accept that. You know that." Di ba, Lincoln? Pwede ba yun? Nasasabihin mo na lang sa amin, and you expect us to believe?
Mr.
These
Chairman.
billions of pesos of the people's money that are being spent to an unknown corporation, what we call prima para, a first-time corporation with only 625,000 pesos ang capital. Tapos you're saying, oh, marami kami inutangan, nagagaransyan ni Mr. Michael Yang na sinasabi nung una, wala siyang pakialam sa Pharmally. And then all of a sudden, nakita natin ang mga connectivities, pumasok na si Alan Lim, pumasok na yung asawa ni Alan Lim, magkakasama sila. In other words, talagang paikot-ikot lang kayo dyan.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
I'll get to you. Lincoln, tama? Okay. I know that you're chomping on your bit, Mr. Wang.
Mr. Chairman.
Before we leave Mr. Yang, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just another question to Mr. Yang. Tanong po kay Mr. Yang tungkol dun sa video na pinakita ng chairman. Sabi po ni Mr.
Hindi akin yun, hindi akin yun. Pinakita ng RITM yun.
Right,
Alright?
that's right, Mr. Chairman. It's easily available on YouTube.
RTVN, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Opo. So, sabi po ninyo, Mr. Yang, nakilala nyo si Mr. Zheng Bingchang sa video na iyon. In-identify nyo po siya. Bilang kayo yung dating presidential economic advisor kay Presidente, hindi nyo ba siya pinayuhan, hindi nyo ba siya binigyan ng advice na yung mga tao na connected sa Pharmally International ay fugitive na, pugante sa batas sa Taiwan kasi meron silang warrants of arrest, yung mag-amang Huang at pati si Mr. Zheng na nakilala nyo sa video?
你跟他说，我当时17年他们公司是好好，我怎么知道他们现在通缉啊？我又不是行刑，我哪能算得到啊？
Mr. Chairman, what Mr. Yang said at that time, yeah, the company is in good standing and there were no records or anything.
Pero siguro naman, Mr. Yang, dahil close nga kayo ni Presidente, matagal na, concerned pa rin kayo sa kanya. So siguro nabalitaan nyo na kahit sa dyaryo lang itong mga naging problema ng Pharmally. Hindi ba kayo na-concern na sabihan siya na Mr. President, ito palang kumpanya, ang mga tao nito ay wanted for financial crimes, may standing warrant pa nga sa Taiwan. Hindi nyo ba siya in-inform?
他说呢，最近不是新闻有出来说这些人嘛，是在台湾有犯了一些法，是通缉犯嘛？你没有因为你是之前的总统的经济顾问，你没有对总统有关心，跟通知他说这些人是有放过这些东西。
你跟他说我17年介绍他们来投资，他们考察不行回去，我就没有再观察他们了，也没有再联系了，我没有去。 也没有去观察这些，已经没有做生意，哪有什么也没有来做生意。
Okay, Mr. Chairman, what Mr. Yang said that during the 2017 he introduced, then things didn't transpire for potential business opportunity. Then after that they have no more communication.
Oh well, alam po natin, Mr. Chairman, na sinamahan ni Mr. Yang si Presidente sa opisina ng Full Wind International sa Xiamen
没有
noong
带总统
2015.
去
So okay, at least sinabi ni Mr. Yang na nagkita pa sila noong 2017, pero I really find it hard to believe po na at this point in time, hindi naisip ni Mr. Yang na importanteng i-inform at i-advise si Presidente na fugitives na at ma-apprise si Presidente na yung mga tao, yung mga kumpanya na engaged yung gobyerno niya ngayong panahon ng pandemya ay wanted for criminal activities. Medyo mahirap po paniwalaan, Mr. Chairman. I'll leave it at that for now po. Salamat, Mr. Chairman.
你不要
Mr.
说
Wang?
你不要说我17年介绍完我没有啊，他们又没有来再做生意，我要通知干嘛？我们没系总统也没有空，天天听我，也没有来跟总统有联系，要通知干嘛？这是人家生意的事情。
Okay, Mr. Chairman, what Mr. Yang said that after the 2017, there has been no more communication after. There's no more business, so and then he doesn't always have an open. 你就是没有跟总统直接正常的那个沟通的嘛，对吧？
什么正常？你是
不是
跟他说，
，sorry, let me just
跟
clarify.
他说我们17年来，他来
So 2017,
来这边考察完就没有来做生意
after
没有联系。
they made their feasibility study, after they made their feasibility study, then so after 2017, when they made their feasibility study, there's no business that progress. And then after that, there's nothing more to report to the president because there's no more any progress or anything about the situation.
Pinasinungalingan naman ni Lincoln. Sabi ni Lincoln, pagka sinusuguro niya yung mga supplier na backup siya ni Michael Yang.
I'm sorry, come again, Mr. Chairman. Pinasinungalingan po ni Lincoln.
That when he negotiated by telephone, which is really weird, they took their word for it because sinasabi niya si Michael Yang ang guarantor.
他说呢，林立说嘛，你有帮他介绍嘛，他们只是在电话上面沟通嘛，然后呢，就说呢，你就是跟他们讲说，他们可以信这个林肯。
是啊，要说林坤中国也有人，他中国也有可能派人去谈，跟他谈嘛。
Mr. Chairman, yes, Lincoln may also have his people in China who could also probably discuss and negotiate it with these suppliers.
Question is, sabi ni Lincoln, pagkausap niya yung mga tao sa China, sinasabi niya, ang backup niya rito, or words to that effect, ay si Michael Yang. And that was okay.
他背后的支持人是杨总。Backup,
Mr. Chairman, may I interject on this part?
Just a moment, please. I'm asking somebody a question.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
跟他说我没有，他是说我是我，跟他说这个我没有。
你只是介绍。
对，我是介绍。
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Yang said that he just simply introduced them.
All right, so you want to limit it that, but Lincoln Ong denies it. So now we're saying Lincoln Ong is lying and that he is showing that he is misrepresenting your name. Is that correct?
Very quickly, Mr. Chair, just very quickly on that point that you raised, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Pangilinan.
Yes, thank you. Tanong kay Mr. Lincoln Ong, pag sinabing nag-guarantee siya, si Mr. Yang, i-guarantee niya na mababayaran yung supplier ng gobyerno. Tama yun, ano? Kayo, kasi babayaran kayo ng gobyerno. Tama? Tama?
Yes po, Mr. Chairman. Yes po.
In other words, siguro ang naisip nyo, ang lakas ni Mr. Yang sa gobyerno, kaya niyang ma-ensure na yung bilyong halaga ay mababayaran ng gobyerno. Tama ba yun? Yun ang guarantee na binibigay ni Mr. Yang na lalabas yung pondo ng gobyerno. At babayaran kayo at babayaran ninyo yung supplier. Tama ba yun? That's correct. Anyway, you already answered it. You already answered yes to my question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, for the record lang about the answers of Mr. Yang earlier.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mahirap lang talaga maniwala na since 2017, wala nang komunikasyon sina Mr. Yang at si Presidente. Because just very recently, the past days, dinipensahan very emotionally ni Presidente si Mr. Yang. At yung alam nating lahat, yung ganyang mga matagal na at close na mga relationship, reciprocal yon. So kung may care at concern si Presidente kay Mr. Yang, naniniwala ako na ganun din ang pakiramdam ni Mr. Yang kay Presidente. So, mahirap talagang paniwalaan na wala ng communication. Just for the record, Mr. Chairman. Salamat.
Your statements are noted. I just want to say that he was referring to the fact that he never saw Pharmally after that meeting, which is belied by Lincoln Ong. He didn't talk about the president. He was, because in fact he was, as you say, defended by the president all the time.
Mr. Chairman,
I was actually asking about the President.
Right.
if I can say
Mr.
some
Wang.
words on this.
Yes, Mr. Wang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, to put light to the whole history of what happened, is after the meeting with the president in March 2017, the Taiwan family instructed me to pursue the expansion into the Philippine market. But as we reached the end of 2018, they started to show no interest to further development of this in the Philippine market.
Who did you show no interest?
My previous company, the Taiwan family, showed no more interest in continuing.
No interest in what?
The plan was to build a manufacturing plant in the Philippines.
So you're saying you have no more interest in putting up a plant?
The Taiwan family.
Well, how can you have a Taiwan family invest here when you have already destroyed your name in Taiwan?
I'm talking in 2018, at the end of 2018, Mr. Chairman.
You had no more interest in investing in the Philippines? Why, did you ever have that? Is that what you told the president? You were going to invest in the Philippines?
Yes, we told the president. The meeting in 2017 March was
Yes.
that the Taiwan family, the listed company, was to build a manufacturing plant in the Philippines.
Where in the Philippines, if I may ask?
They didn't decide on it because they didn't
So it
push
was
through.
all in Kuwait, in expectancy. You don't know where you're going to invest. You just say, I want to meet the president because I might invest. Is that correct?
There was intent.
That's how I take it.
We did look at a few locations, but none was concluded. But I just want to share.
What was concluded? You cannot conclude on the basis of a desire to invest in something that you have not said so, and you don't even know where to invest it.
Mr. Chairman, I cannot represent the entire board of that Taiwan
Yes,
family.
you can. Yes, you can.
I cannot. I'm only.
Anyway, I'm not going to argue with you. That's your thing.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say.
You cannot represent anymore because the board's the reputation of Taiwan Pharmally has been singed or terribly destroyed in Taiwan. Is that correct?
You only made known of this in August 2021.
Even if you knew it in 2018 or 2020 or in 2094, it is already destroyed because that was a very big scam that was pulled. $50 million was lost, correct?
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to answer on why Mr. Michael Yang.
You're saying that you no longer, as if the Philippines is going to jump at your investment. I got a lot of investments for Taiwan in the Philippines. And they put in their money. They borrowed money. It was all on the up and up, in the open.
Yes.
And when they said they were going to come over, Lee Teng-Hui said they were going to go south. You're not even Taiwanese, you're Singaporean.
That's precisely why I left the company in 2019, because I felt embarrassed that a company will make its commitment to a country to do something and not pull through.
We're poor. We're a poor country. And when you say you're making a commitment and now you're going not to invest, is that what you're trying to say?
I felt embarrassed by my previous
investment elsewhere. We don't want to do business with people who trick the stock market, where public people or people buy their stocks out of trust for the company. Is that what you're trying to say? We'll answer you right now. I certainly wouldn't want to do business with you. Okay? You don't even know where your father is, right?
I don't
Where
know
do you think your father is right now?
I don't know, probably
And I sympathize with you. Because I lost my father many years ago, and I still pine for him. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just would
No, I
like
just,
I mean, I'm not trying to argue. I just want to tell
who's
you,
arguing? I'm not arguing with you.
I may have been portrayed as I'm arguing with you. I
You said
apologize
that.
for
I didn't say that.
I'm sorry. I just want to say why Mr. Michael Young said he didn't know about Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation, because after in 2019, when I quit the previous Taiwan company, I was very embarrassed. I was embarrassed to everyone. I don't know.
I'm sure you were. Yes.
I was. And so I did not inform Mr. Michael Young when I set up my own company.
Well, nobody said that, all right?
And I intentionally asked.
Nobody said that, but it cannot be denied that Mr. Pharmally came in with Mr. Young directing traffic when you went to see the president. I didn't see you engaging in a very lively talk with the president, and you can speak English. I didn't see your father in a lively conversation with the president, and I'm sure he speaks English very well because he's from Singapore. But Mr. Michael Young was very, very ebullient. He was the master of ceremonies.
I'm not here to defend Mr. Michael Young. I'm here to defend.
That's what I thought you were doing.
No, definitely not. I'm here to defend.
I take your word for it then.
Yeah. I just want to say on record that even though he didn't know about this Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation, when we received the bid for the PPEs and the BGIs, the quantum was so large, we seek all the resources we could find. And I asked Lincoln to approach Michael Young to help with the supplies. And
so you ask him to get help in the supply?
And the funding.
And the funding?
Yes.
Why, is he a man of great means? He owns a building, I think, in Davao. He started selling telephones.
Because
cell phones?
Because I think he is a successful businessman, a Chinese businessman with a lot of connections in China with all these supplies. And so
he's very well connected. Okay, we're willing to accept that because I can see that he was even invited to go to China, and he gets a lot of strength from his friendship with our president. So I will leave it at that.
But
even suggesting anything, but you're the one suggesting that he's very. But you see, we're just reacting to what Mr. Michael Young said, that after that meeting, you never talked with him. Now you're saying that you wanted Mr. Young to help you in China because he's very well connected, correct?
Yes, and he didn't know it was me.
Answer the question, yes or no?
I asked Lincoln if he could talk to Mr. Michael Young to help PPC, Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation, which he did not know it was owned by me. Well, I have a share in that company.
Yeah, but you were with him, and earlier on, you said you asked yourself so that because he was such a big man in China, and therefore you needed his help. Am I wrong?
I do not.
Did I hear you wrong?
I said, Mr. Chairman, what I said is I asked Lincoln to approach Mr. Michael Young.
Don't mumble. Just say it.
Mr. Chairman, what I said was I asked Mr. Lincoln to approach Mr. Michael Young, and omitting the details that I was actually a shareholder of Pharmally Pharmaceutical Corporation.
There you go. So you asked Mr. Lincoln because you needed Michael Young's support to get clout in China.
Yes.
Did I understand you correctly?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Now I will ask you another question, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
How old are you?
I'm 31 years old, Mr. Chairman.
Very young. Very young. And, when you first met the president, that was about what? 5 years ago? 4 years ago?
In 2017, yes.
About 27, 26, would you say?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're a very strong entrepreneur because you're bidding for billions of pesos worth of medical products such as, masks and PPEs, right? And you got them, right?
Yes, we were awarded the bids.
Somebody got them, right?
Yes, the company was awarded.
Who was it who told you, who encouraged you to go to PS-DBM Because you're new here.
I think based on my recollection, there was already procurement by PS-DBM from the Chinese circle. I think it was maybe referring to that military plane and military vessel where they went to deliver the goods. So we felt that if they are procuring in that manner, we should try to put ourselves out there because Mr.
So
Lee,
you got to use the plane, right? Right?
we did not use the plane. We heard about someone using the plane.
What has that got to do with my question? My question is, how did you get to know that there were big deals to be made in PS-DBM? Who told you that?
There was talk in the Chinese communities that there is perhaps a procurement by the
And of course, you're
PS-DBM.
so lucky. Like Mr. Lau is so lucky. You got 8.9 billion, right? 8.8 billion, right?
Miss,
Yes. Yes.
I don't understand the question, Mr. Chairman.
It's very clear. You're so lucky you got 8.8 billion contracts, not including 2021.
I would say, Mr. Chairman, that we were lucky to be awarded, but we worked hard to get it delivered.
Oh, yes, of course you work hard. You got it with the 650,000 capital, 625,000 peso capital. I don't think you can get to first base in China with that kind of capital. Or in America or in Taiwan with 625,000, you can get 58 million pesos. Let's start with that. $1 million contract. And then later on, it went up to as high as 3.8 billion. All right?
Mr. Chair, just very quickly, one quick question. Was he aware, with your permission, that the FDA did not have a license to operate from the FDA to import these products that they brought in, that they only got it in January of 2021 after bringing in billions already? Was he aware of that? He is saying they were working hard. You were able to get it by cutting so many corners.
We have FDA LTOs since March 2020. I don't understand the Honorable Senator's question.
Sharade Puno was there in your meeting with the president. So they are on notice that they were brought to Mindanao to meet with you, correct? You had to work hard to get Sharade Puno to be there. She's the FDA Director General at the time.
I believe ex-Director General Puno was no longer FDA Director since I can't remember when.
Senator Gelon, did you have a question?
No, I yield to Senator Lacson.
Yes.
Yes,
Mr.
Senator
Chairman,
Lacson.
just a couple of quick questions. When you submitted your letter of intent to PS-DBM, I will address this to Mr. Lincoln Yang or Mr. Wang